My ex-husband's ex-girlfriend treated me like garbage for the majority of my son's childhood, saying that I was an awful mother and that I was going to ruin my child's life forever, all because of my bad parenting. But today I finally got my revenge, as I proved once and for all that not only was I a better mother than her, but also that her son was a mess up from the very beginning. And it honestly feels so good to get some revenge on this lady, because trust me, this Karen absolutely deserves it. Here's what happened. Many years ago, I was married to an absolute jerk. A jerk who cheated on me repeatedly and who was verbally awful towards me. And the day things turned physical is the day I filed for divorce. And worst of all, we had a son who was 5 when we divorced. Well, cut to a year after the divorce, and my ex had a girlfriend, one that stuck around longer than many of the others had. And I had strongly suspected that she had been one of his on and off affair partners. She was divorced from a wealthy man, and she was begrudgingly polite to me, but always had to smirkingly let me know that she had money, and felt that she was superior to me in every way, as was her son to mine, and that she looked down on me. Now this woman, let's call her Jamie, had a boy my son's age, and we'll call him John for the sake of the story. Jamie and my ex would occasionally ask me to babysit her son, and I always said yes because number one, it wasn't the kid's fault that my ex was a jerk, and that his mother was a slime that slept with married men. And secondly, the kids got along, and my son would be seeing him anyway on dad's custody days. Why punish the children because their parents were jerks? And let's also call my boy Sam. Now John wasn't a bad kid, he was just incredibly entitled. He once told me that I was poor because I cleaned my house myself and I didn't have a maid. I then pointed out that he was poor too, as all of the money in his world came from his dad's alimony payments to his mom, but that he, John, had no money of his own, which made him even poorer than I was. One conversation that John and I had at my house went something like this. John looked at me and said, "I want toast and jam." I said okay, but then he asked me, "Do you have any marmalade?" After I said yes, he asked me what kind of bread I have. When I told him I had whole wheat bread, he said to me, "Good, then make me toast with marmalade on whole wheat bread and cut the crusts off. I hope it's good marmalade." And for some weird reason, that conversation has always stuck with me. Many years later, long after my ex and Jamie had broken up and our children were grown, I ran into Jamie at a local event. Now, as an aside, many people thought that because I was this tiny, poor, struggling single mom with no help financially from my ex or anyone else, and having to work constantly to keep a roof over our heads, that I wasn't a good mother, and that I wouldn't be able to raise a child with any kind of stability or order in his life. Add to this, my ex continued to be awful to the point that I had to get a restraining order. Pretty much everyone expected me to fail as a parent, and that my child will fail in life too. And Jamie was no exception. She was exceptionally smug in her belief that I was a terrible mother. But truth be told, I was a loving but very strict mom who did homework with my son every single day. I made a full breakfast, lunch, and dinner from scratch daily. We ate together every night. I was always home and available for my son, and always very hands-on. I even worked an extra job to hire a math tutor when it seemed like my son might be struggling with math. The tutor, who had his PhD in mathematics, told me that he thought my son was a genius, and I thought he was joking, but apparently he wasn't. Well, as it turns out, Jamie's boy John had gone totally off the rails, far away from his marmalade days. With no life skills, John had turned to substances, dropped out of school, and had become an awful addict. He had been in and out of rehab, living on the streets at times, and Jamie still seemed to be enabling him. After telling me all of this, she condescendingly put her hand on my arm, leaned in and said, "Sam too? Poor Sam, he was never very bright. I know he was terrible in school." And sure, while Sam was very, very bright, it was true. He had been awful in grade school through high school. In fact, he almost failed out of high school. I was in the office having meetings with the principal weekly, but as it turned out, Sam was just incredibly bored. I leaned away from Jamie, patted her shoulder, chuckled, and said, "Well, actually, Sam has 3 STEM degrees. We did his undergraduate and a double major in physics and astronomy, thinking he was going to be an astrophysicist. He graduated with what I think was maybe a 4.3 in both, but then changed his mind about his career path and got his advanced degree in nanophysics. He's currently working in a prestigious lab engineering semiconductors for rocketry, so I guess that makes him a rocket scientist. He has an amazing girlfriend who is a lawyer and who just made partner. They both make 6 figures and he bought a house. I'm so blessed that he turned out so well." Then I patted her on the arm and I said, "Well, it's been nice seeing you. I'm so sorry to hear about John. I hope he can get his life back on track. He was such a sweet kid. And yes, I really do mean it when I say I want him to get things back in order." But either way, a mom's petty revenge is through our kids' success and failures. And while this was years in the making, it honestly feels so incredibly satisfying. Dude, I hate Jamie in this story. I'll just say that first and foremost. I don't like her. I think she's a terrible person. And the fact that she tried to make the assumption, oh yeah, Sam must have turned out the same, right? Almost with this hoping and wishing of please be a mess up like John. Your mom's a mess up, so you've got to be a mess up too, right? But it's honestly so cool to see that Sam really excelled. He's a rocket scientist, his wife's a lawyer, they're making bank, like that's honestly all you could ever ask for. So yes, it took a while, but you did get that revenge on Jamie in a way that truly was meaningful, because the way she treated you beforehand was completely uncalled for, and she deserved to be put in her place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My estranged boomer parents are blowing through my stated boundaries just to make me do a favor for a stranger at a job I had almost 15 years ago. And I'm now realizing that my parents will never be anything more than just a hot mess. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 38-year-old female, and just like many of us, I have had a challenging relationship with my parents my entire life. They married at 19, and from what I can tell, they've hated each other ever since then. I learned late in life that I was only conceived because my dad cheated on my mom with his cousin's wife, and she would only take him back if they had another baby. My father was never nice, and my mom was never especially maternal. I was the second child. My 9 years older than me brother was the golden child. Successful in school, he was a golfer, a tennis player, and a debate club star. Everything their social climbing Florida hearts really desired. Well, that was until he wrapped his car around a tree at 18. And I'll skip the grief details, but it really sucked. And my life generally sucked from then on. I was allowed no social life, no real friends. I played video games, I read, I walked my dog, and I rode my horse. And yes, to assuage their guilt, they did get me into horses and bought me 2 over the course of my childhood. Although it was a constant tool to manipulate me. Every day I was told about how much they gave up, how it ruined their life. If I didn't get the ribbons, I was failing. If I wanted something like to go on an overseas class trip in high school, I only could if I agreed that they could sell the horse. I learned later in life that this was a lie, and my grandparents had offered to fund it, and they never planned to let me go. They just wanted me to agree to sell the horse. Mostly though, my parents were just emotionally neglectful. My dad got physical occasionally, and I spent a week in the hospital alone at 14 after a spinal fusion surgery for scoliosis. They'd drop in for 10 minutes or so daily, and my dad never missed an opportunity to tell me I gave myself scoliosis grieving for my brother. He brought that up as recently as my 2018 graduate school graduation lunch. I hit the bricks at 18 with the first dude that came along, and it was awful in its own way, but not enough to go home. From then on, I was fully on my own. I tried to keep a relationship with them, but as I had committed the sins of leaving the Catholic Church, living in sin with a partner, and becoming a liberal, we really had little in common. They managed to keep just enough presence to continue to emotionally torture me. During COVID, I was working in a hospital in New York, having been sucked into their incident command team from another department because I could compartmentalize well. And every day, my parents would tell me about how they're out in Florida doing all the wrong things. My mom has COPD, congestive heart failure, and is a lifelong anorexic, which by the way is something that almost took her out. And my dad had early stage leukemia, and by that point, they had gone deep into their political party. The final straw was when I got a text out of the blue asking me to give them details of the complications I had with multiple scoliosis surgeries so that they could relay those details to a friend of a friend who has a 12-year-old daughter being recommended surgery to try and talk these strangers out of getting their child recommended medical care. Around this time, I had also hit my stride in my career, and suddenly they wanted financial help because of their lifetime of being lazy, as well as unwilling to work and living off of dead relatives' inheritance, unemployment, and the money they stole from me. And it's like, no, I don't think so. Well, I told them that I needed a break, and 3 months later, I reached out saying that I was ready to resume a relationship if we three could have an adult conversation about the way I'd like to be treated going forward. But as you can probably guess, they declined. Well, I haven't spoken to them or returned a text message since 2023. They're blocked on all socials and only not blocked on my phone because in an emergency situation, I may want to be informed. Well, today, entirely out of the blue in the middle of my workday, I get a text from their number. No hello, no how are you, just the name of a stranger who is apparently trying to revive an education program that I used to run at a museum that I worked at 15 years ago, and a phone number and the direction to call her and explain a lesson plan from, again, 15 years ago. The thing is too, I'd actually been thinking about trying to thaw relations, so to that end, I want to thank my mom and dad, because I realized that you will never be anything more than a hot mess, rude and cruel, and the unthinking boomers that you truly are. That's awful, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. These people are clearly just users and they literally just don't care about you, and I think I can confidently say that because it sounds like you know that as well. And that really sucks because it didn't have to be this way. They easily could have been normal, functioning parents who didn't treat you like garbage, and yet here they are, literally once again, only contacting you when they need something. That's super inappropriate and you don't deserve that that in the slightest. My ex-girlfriend tried to force me out of my own home, even going as far as getting the cops involved. But when she started to forge documents to try and get me out of the house, I decided that enough was enough, and I got some revenge by literally leaving in the middle of the day. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I was in a very toxic living situation with a sort of ex-girlfriend slash roommate. We rented a house together, had separate bedrooms, and we lived our own lives. We had been there for 3 years, and the landlord collected rent from each of us separately instead of one monthly payment. By the end, we were both unemployed and struggling to make ends meet. I was behind 4 months on the rent, and she was behind 3 months, and the landlord was getting antsy about it. She was also an animal hoarder. During the time I lived with her, she had 3 dogs, half a dozen cats, 20 or so rats, several tanks of fishes, a rabbit, and a parrot, all of which, by the way, were completely neglected. She would get a new pet, dote on it for a few months, then get bored. Same as she did with her children who didn't live with her anymore, which is the same as she did with me. By this time, we fought constantly. I would have loved to move out, but I was trapped by needing to pay off the back rent before I could even start saving for rent and deposit on a new place. One day, after a particularly bad argument, she called the cops and told them that she had someone in her house who wouldn't leave. The cops eventually arrived, separated us, and started the interrogation. They said to me, "Well, she says you won't leave." But I explained that I live here and that I have for 3 years, and yes, I am on the lease. The cops looked at each other and then went to explain to her that she couldn't just tell her roommate to leave. Then they came back with a solution in the interim. "Well, why don't you leave for a few hours until the situation cools down?" But I said, you know what, I would prefer if she left. And so that's exactly what she did. Now, the only thing I was really worried about was that the cops would ask to see the lease. We had lost our copy a couple of years before and couldn't find it anywhere. 2 days later, she came home and presented me with a new lease that she had signed with the landlord, dated 3 years previous, that had her listed as the sole occupant. And it's like, okay, fine by me. I brought the new lease to a legal aid clinic for an opinion, and they thought it was, from a legal standpoint, hilarious. In particular, the part where the lease was dated a year before the document was created. I also went to social services who had a copy of the original lease, and I explained the situation and they made a copy to give it back to me. And then the fight just went out of me. I was gathering all this evidence for what exactly? To stay there? An interesting court battle? So 2 weeks later, I borrowed a truck and I got out of there. I left in the middle of the day while she was away. I took my clothing and computers and left everything else behind. I couch surfed for the next 6 months while I got my stuff together. I never saw or spoke to her ever again. She got to keep the forged document, making her responsible for my share of the rent. So screw her and screw the landlord. But that's just ordinary revenge. The petty revenge comes in 2 parts. First, at the time, I had a serious Coca-Cola habit, at least 2 liters a day. The plastic bottles had a 5-cent refundable deposit, but it wasn't worth the trouble to bring them back to the store at that price. So I just started saving them. I didn't have any definitive plans, maybe build a boat or something like that, but I kept them in a weird little storage room in the basement, just this small little room with an out-facing door. Well, after 3 years, that room was getting seriously full. I would crack the door a bit, fling an empty bottle on the top of the pile, and slam the door shut before the whole mess started spilling out. Those bottles were among the items that I left behind when I moved out, and I would like to imagine the landlord's face when he finally opened that door and that mountain of useless plastic cascaded down around him. Now, the second bit of petty revenge had to do with the parrot. He was neglected just like all the other pets, spending all of his days in a little cage. She was planning to teach him to speak, but of course never got around to it. But he did like to imitate sounds though, so I took it upon myself to teach him to talk. During my last few weeks there, I'd speak to him anytime she was out of the room, and by the time I moved out, he could say exactly one thing, and that was to say hello wicked in French, which for me was a nice little farewell gift before I split and never talked to her ever again. Oh man, the second she forged documents and said, "Oh yeah, I'm the only person living here," that's the second I'd be like, all right, I'm getting out of here. I do not want to deal with this. Like seriously, this is not worth the effort. I don't blame you for leaving, because this ex-roommate and ex-girlfriend sounds like a nightmare and I would not want to deal with that. My stupid manager demands that I don't do anything with my job without emailing her first in writing and getting approval. So I decided to maliciously comply and play this stupid game with her, eventually leading to her getting overwhelmed and her stupid policy going back to the way it was. Here's how it went down. A few years back, I was working in a small office where I basically did a lot of administrative work, some customer service, some scheduling. I mean, you name it, I basically did it. I was kind of the unofficial catch-all employee. My manager loved being in control, but would never actually take responsibility when things went sideways. One day, one of our longtime clients called in and asked to reschedule a major service appointment. They were super reliable, always paid on time, and honestly, just easy to work with. So I looked at the schedule and I saw that with a bit of rearranging, we could make their new time work just fine. So I went ahead and I made the change. Done and dusted. Later that day, the manager stormed into my office like she had just caught me stealing company secrets. She asked if I rescheduled the said client without her approval. I affirmed and I told her I've done that in the past. She then said that from now on, I was not to make any schedule changes without written approval from her. Email me every time. I want it in writing. And those were her exact words. So I thought to myself, okay then, if that's what you want, then I could absolutely play that game. From that moment on, I emailed her every single change, even the smallest, most routine stuff. Appointment time shifts, when someone came back from lunch late, if a client called in to confirm something, if a tech was running 10 minutes behind, it didn't matter, I sent it all. And I waited for her written approval every single time. It didn't take long before these things started to pile up. Clients were calling back wondering why their appointments had not been confirmed. Techs were waiting in the parking lot because I couldn't officially send them to the next job without her go-ahead. One poor guy waited 45 minutes because she didn't check her email all morning. After about 2 weeks of this nonsense, she finally came back into my office completely exacerbated. She then asked me why I was blowing up her inbox with all of that. Well, I simply told her I was doing exactly what she asked. You said everything had to be in writing, so I'm making sure you have my approval before touching anything. Well, she just stood there blinking, realizing she had created her own nightmare. And let's just say that little policy didn't last much longer. Dude, I can't stand controlling managers, and my God, I've dealt with my fair share in the past. They're the worst, they don't know what they're doing, and chances are you're like their only escape from like losing their job. Because it sounds like in this situation, the original poster would be the obvious choice as manager. They know how to do everything, they can probably handle all the employees just fine, but they just don't have the title, and that sucks, because they would probably be a fantastic manager, willing to step in and like do what they need to do, but instead you're stuck with this idiot who's like, oh, you can't do anything without my approval. I want it in writing or else it didn't happen. And that's super annoying. I would be so frustrated by that. So good for you for getting some revenge, because this lady absolutely deserved it. My idiotic boss demands that I clock in exactly on time, claiming that anything besides that is just me stealing company time. So I decided to maliciously comply, literally stifling all of the work in my store to a point that it really started to piss off customers. Here's what happened. A few years ago, I worked in a retail nightmare at a mid-sized department store. It was in university and doing the classic part-time grind, and for the most part, the job was tolerable. That is, until we got a new assistant manager who we will call Chad. Chad came in like a whirlwind of bad ideas and passive-aggressive memos. He was one of those guys who thought that being a manager meant catching people out rather than, managing people. And his biggest obsession was the clock-in system. At our store, we had a 7-minute grace window to clock in before being counted as late. I usually arrived about 10 minutes early, clocked in maybe 5 minutes before my shift, and used the time to settle in, say hi to coworkers, grab a water, etc. And honestly, nobody cared until Chad came around. One day, Chad pulled me aside and told me that I was stealing company time by clocking in before my shift started. But I pointed out that I wasn't taking breaks or leaving early, and that it was barely 5 minutes, but he just simply wouldn't budge. He told me in no uncertain terms that I must not clock in a single minute before my scheduled start time, or there would be disciplinary action. So it's like, fine, you want exact compliance? Then let's go. The next day, I arrived at my usual time, but instead of clocking in early, I sat in the break room until my phone hit 10 o'clock exactly, and then I clocked in. That meant I was just starting work as the store opened. Not on the floor, not ready to help customers, but instead just walking to my station. Well, this is when chaos ensues. Customers were waiting and no one was manning the register, and eventually Chad was fuming. After a couple of days of this, we walked through the door on time, clocking in exactly on the hour, and only then starting the routine task setups when Chad confronted me again. He said to me, I noticed that you're not ready at your station when your shift starts. So I said to him cheerfully, right, well, it's because I'm not allowed to clock in early, so that means I can't start working earlier either. I'm just following your instructions after all. Well, when I said that, he had absolutely no rebuttal. Eventually, human resources got wind of this, thanks to another coworker who was also annoyed, and they told Chad to use discretion, and that clocking in 5 minutes early wasn't that big of a deal unless someone started to misuse the system. But either way, victory never tasted so petty because Chad was super annoying to deal with. Dude, managers like Chad just make life so miserable. Dude, just let me clock in so I can do my job. Why are you being so bent out of shape? I'm literally doing something that will only benefit my job in the long run. There's no problem with clocking in early just to make sure you're at your station ready to go. That's not the original poster stealing company time. That's them stepping up and saying, okay, I'm going to be ready and I'm going to do my job. So good for you for maliciously complying, because this guy is a complete moron. And the fact that he was trying to catch you guys on this is just unbelievably frustrating. An entitled old couple screams at my kid at the top of their lungs, dogs, complaining that he's making too much noise and that he needs to shut up right now. And I'm honestly still shaken up about this because my kid quite literally did not do a single thing. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm still shaken, rattled, and rolled about this, but I just experienced a Karen moment and I'm angry at him, but also angry that I didn't defend my kid harder. My kid is 9 years old, and like all 9-year-olds, he has a lot of energy, which he usually tempers in public because he also has extreme social anxiety to the point where we have him in therapy for it. He is generally a well-behaved little guy. He says please and thank you, apologizes unprompted when he makes mistakes, takes his hat off at the dinner table before being asked, corrects people politely when they use offensive language, and does what he's told with little complaint. He's got the heart of a lion and the demeanor of a lamb. I can count on one hand the amount of times I've had to discipline him in the last few years because he's just not a problematic kid. So my dad and I took him to McDonald's for a quick lunch, and since he has never once changed his order, we told him to go grab a seat on the long benches by the window. I went to grab napkins and ketchup while my dad ordered, and when I sat down, my son immediately said, "Mom, can we please go eat in the car? I don't want to be here anymore." Now, it took a minute of prompting before he admitted that he had been sort of rocking in his seat because he was nervous sitting alone. It's something the therapist has recommended we do, as it's a small discomfort and helps him get more comfortable with being independent, that being the sitting alone and not the rocking. Well, as he was doing that, I guess the bumping annoyed the elderly couple at the next table, so the man turned to him and yelled at him to cut it the F out, and the woman then hissed out, "Seriously, stop it." I then asked him, did he yell or did he say it kind of loudly? And he said no. He definitely yelled and then slapped his hand on the table. And seriously, he wasn't even at the table for more than 2 minutes tops. I told him we wouldn't be leaving, but that I doubted they'd say anything else since I was there, so he was safe. When my dad sat down between him and the couple, he eased up enough to eat in complete silence, and the couple looked mildly uncomfortable because it was obvious my son had said something, but I could tell that he was still shaken. I chose not to confront the couple because I didn't want to stoop to their level, but then they finished their coffees, which, let's be honest, we all know they'd been camping with that since 10 o'clock in the morning, and the man walked up behind me, jabbed me in the shoulder, and said to me, "Sorry, but he was bumping the bench and it was really annoying." And I was honestly so stunned that the only thing I could think to say was, okay, well maybe don't yell at my kid. But what I wanted to say was, if you yell at my kid again, it will be the last words you ever utter. My dad then said, "Was that guy serious?" And I told him what happened, and I had to stop him from getting up and throwing hands because jail doesn't have a seniors menu. And sure, I get that it's probably really annoying, but there were other options. You could say politely to him, "Hey, could you please stop? It's disruptive," which he absolutely would have done. And he even would have apologized because that's who he is as a person. Or they could have waited until I sat down a minute later and said to me, "Hi, excuse me, could you please ask your son to stop that?" Which it seriously would not have even come to that because he was simply antsy waiting for us to sit down while he was all alone and vulnerable in an open concept area full of people. So anyways, screw you McDonald's Karens, and I hope you felt super powerful and smug yelling at someone a tenth of your age and someone half your size. You truly set an awful example, and I hope I never have to deal with you ever again. Yeah, that's a really terrible thing to do to a kid, especially one that you don't even know. Like seriously, I think it's just a rule of thumb that as an adult, you don't talk to other people's kids. So the fact that these idiots decided to scream at a child sitting there waiting for their family, in my opinion, is so uncalled for. And I think for the original poster, I wouldn't feel too bad about your response because in those high stress moments, it's hard to know exactly what to say. But I think you definitely got the point across that what they did was completely inappropriate. And hopefully for the sake of you and your kid, this kind of thing never happens ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for leaving early before dinner, all because my mom didn't cook any vegan options that my wife can eat? Because right now, my mom is freaking out on us, claiming that we're being disrespectful and that my wife needs to learn how to eat normally. And at this point, we really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I recently got married with my long-term fiance, and she and my mom have never really gotten along, and I always kind of hoped that things would get better after the marriage. Well, my mom invited us over for dinner, which was supposed to be our first meal as a married couple at her house. Now, my wife is a vegan. She was a vegetarian before but switched to vegan a couple of months ago, and my mom knows that she's a vegan. Despite that, my mom didn't prepare a single vegan dish for her, except for maybe a soggy-looking salad. Even the veggie soup, she added chicken broth to it, just to make it tastier. The rest was all non-vegan stuff like mac and cheese, fried chicken, jambalaya, and banana pudding for dessert. All things that my wife cannot eat. So I told my mom mom that we were going to leave before dinner since there's nothing that my wife could eat in the first place. My mom said that she can just pick out the shrimp out of the jambalaya and eat the salad, but I told her that's not how it works. Then she started insisting the veggie soup was fine, but I pointed out that it wasn't vegan because of the chicken broth, which according to my mom was BS. She then asked my wife if she can't eat just normally for one day. Well, my wife said no, but she doesn't mind just having the salad, but I knew she was just trying to save the day. At this point, I was fed up with how my mom was treating her, so I thanked my mom and I told her that we were leaving. Well, my mom freaked out. She blamed us with being disrespectful. She said she spent hours cooking all that food for me, but I told her that's the issue. She should have thought about my wife as well. But my mom said I was exaggerating because it's not like she's allergic or anything like that. So are we at fault for leaving dinner after my mom didn't cook anything my wife can eat? What should we do? No, you guys didn't do anything wrong. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the same thing. Does your mom not know that someone who's vegan, if they do eat any kind of meat, they can be like violently ill? Like that is known to happen to people and that is not something to mess with. But I think more to the point, it's just the fact that your mom didn't think about your wife at all. Like she literally made all this food and said, oh, it's fine. Just eat around the shrimp and eat normally. And it's like, lady, what are you talking about? That is so weird. The least that she could have done was at least make some kind of effort. But instead she just made excuses and somehow blamed the wife in this situation. So no, I don't think you're the jerk because this is absolutely unacceptable because the way your mom acted was incredibly toxic. Am I the jerk for kicking my friend out of my house at night, all because she threw up during our scary movie marathon? Because right now she's still mad at me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 16-year-old female, and my friends and I have this yearly Halloween tradition where we have a sleepover at my house, turn off every single light, and have a scary movie marathon in my basement. This girl, who we will call Teresa, recently joined our friend group and came to our Halloween night for the first time yesterday. We started off the night with this film called Barbarian, and Teresa was terrified throughout the entire movie. She screamed multiple times, including screaming for 20 seconds straight during a jump scare. She started crying, hyperventilating, and she was hiding behind us. She ended up going on her phone half the time to calm her nerves, and we tried to comfort her or even joke about how stupid the creature looks just to try and lighten the mood. At one point, it must have gotten too much for Teresa because she threw up everywhere. We then spent half an hour cleaning up after her and trying to make her feel better, but she was still shaking and crying from fear. I suggested we watch some funny animal videos on YouTube to calm her down before going back to the scary movie marathon, but she refused, saying watching anything horror related would give her another panic attack. But I said she could probably stay upstairs with the light on and spend the rest of the night there and come back down when we finished the movies. But she said that even that was too scary for her, and my parents wouldn't be getting home until late, so there was no one in the upstairs part of the house. I asked Teresa what she wanted to do instead, and she said she wanted one of us to go upstairs with her so she wouldn't be alone. Now the rest of us were actually looking forward to the scary movie marathon, and we didn't feel it was fair for one of us to be left out of something that we actually wanted to do. Teresa said she was terrified of the dark, being alone, and the basement, and she begged for one of us to just stay with her. But I told her that her only choices were to stay and watch the movie with us or spend the rest of the night upstairs alone. She then began tearing up and pleading for someone to spend the night with her. Now, I really thought that this entire drama was just wasting time we were meant to be spending on our movie marathon. If she did agree to stay with us, then she would spend the entire time vomiting, crying, and having panic attacks. I also realized that it would be a bad idea to leave someone who's pissed off at me unattended in my own home. So I told Teresa that it would be best if she just left. It was only 7:00 p.m., although it was completely dark outside. She then burst into tears and said I was a monster for kicking her out in the dark, even though I knew she was too scared to go home by herself. But I said I gave her multiple chances to stay in the house, but she refused to take them, so this was literally my only option. Ever since then, she's been mad at me, and she now refuses to speak to me. So am I the jerk for asking Teresa to leave? Because right now, I'm not really sure what to do. Okay, I've got to be honest here and say that I think everybody sucks in this scenario, because seriously, this is all just a massive mess. For starters, Teresa is a complete idiot for showing up in the first place. If she knew this is how she would react to having any kind of like scary movie in front of her. Like seriously, she screamed for 20 seconds over a jump scare. Like I can understand for like a second, but 20 seconds? Like I don't know if you realize that, but that's a long time. So for her to even show up in the first place, while she knows that this is something she can't handle, in my opinion is really dumb. But also, the way that the original poster acted is incredibly rude. If my friend was actually having a panic attack and I cared about them in the way that a friend should care about someone, I would stop what I'm doing and try to help them out. I totally understand that you guys were looking forward to this night, but don't you think this could possibly get rescheduled rescheduled for another night so that you guys can, like, I don't know, take care of your friend, and then you kick her out of the house afterwards? Like, oh my god, what is going on? These are kids we're talking about, like teenagers. She's not even a full-grown adult. And I don't know about you, but scary movies are especially scary when you're just a kid. So sure, Teresa definitely should not have been there in the first place, but for you to kick her out and be like, you've got to go, you're ruining the night, that in my opinion is incredibly rude and absolutely should not have happened. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that his parents are taking advantage of us after they tried to increase our rent by up to 85%? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated because my boyfriend doesn't see the truth right in front of him. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been dating my boyfriend for almost 5 years. We were housemates when we started dating and shared a house with others for a year and a half before deciding to move in together alone. 2.5 years ago, my in-laws bought a house and asked if we wanted to live there. And after some thought, we finally accepted it. The beginning was stressful because my mother-in-law wanted to be involved in all of the preparations, but I told my boyfriend we would handle it ourselves and she finally calmed down. Well, we signed a contract in my boyfriend's name with symbolic rent and responsibility for expenses. My boyfriend has a sister who lives abroad with a more stable financial situation, but his parents still give her part of the rent money to maintain equal rights between the children. My in-laws own a company, and 4 months ago, they told us they needed to raise our rent by 85%, all because they lost an important client. But my boyfriend and I discussed it and we proposed a 55% increase. Our contract is valid for 5 years, and by law, landlords can only increase rent once a year by up to about 2%. Before we reached this agreement, I expressed my concerns to my boyfriend, perhaps a bit aggressively, because it was unfair and not legal. I also suggested that if his parents needed financial help, they should ask him and his sister, given their emphasis on equal treatment. The discussion created tension as it did involve his parents. He spoke to them and they agreed to a 55% increase. Well, 3 months later, I returned from a vacation with friends, and he told me his parents plan to increase the rent next year when we reach 3 years into the contract, applying it retroactively for the entire period. And I was shocked, thinking this issue was finally resolved. I reminded him that legally they can only apply increases for 1 year. We argued again and I insisted they should follow the law. My boyfriend is just way too accommodating, and if it weren't for his parents, he would not accept it. I told him I wouldn't agree this time, and his parents could only increase the rent for 1 year. We haven't discussed it since, and I doubt he addressed it with his parents. But last weekend, we visited his parents in another city, and I discovered, even though he already knew, that they were renovating a studio they own with extensive work, which would have a new kitchen and bathroom and essentially everything. And it's then that I realized they probably raised our rent to cover these costs. I now cannot look at them the same way, and I don't want to be around them. I understand my boyfriend wants to help, but their approach is unfair and unjust to us, especially towards their son. Yet my boyfriend doesn't see their behavior as problematic, and it's affecting our relationship. So am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that his parents are taking advantage of us? What should I do? Oh man, first of all, I can't believe you signed a 5-year contract. Seriously, what in the world are you guys thinking? Like, I can understand a year contract, like that's pretty normal, but 5 years? There's no way that's happening. Like, that really is a stupid decision, like come on. But also, you have it spot on. These people are illegally increasing your rent, and your boyfriend is just going along with it. And that is so uncalled for, it's not even funny. Like, this guy sounds like a complete pushover. And for a point of clarity, this guy is 30 years old. If he was fresh out of high school, I would understand this. But this guy is in his 30s, and he's just like, oh yeah, you can increase it 55%. It's like, no, you're not gonna do that. Like, that's not fair for anybody, and it's super illegal. So no, you are not the jerk for raising these concerns, because the way his parents are acting is completely insane. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that I can't be around his mom for the time being after she said some awful things about my dead sister? Because right now I am incredibly upset, and I'm still so frustrated with the way she acted that right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend and I, and for the sake of the story we'll call my boyfriend Colton, have been dating for almost 4 years now. We met in college and instantly clicked. By now we've met each other's families and built a relationship with them. Colton went camping with me last year, and my family loves to camp. And normally it included several aunts and uncles along with a bunch of little cousins running around, and my entire family loved him. I've met his family a handful of times, and he's been honest with me in admitting that he isn't very close to his parents. He's the middle child in a family of 7, and he just felt neglected growing up, and like he was an afterthought. While he's still close with his siblings, all of whom I adore, he's never grown out of feeling like his parents don't care about him. His mom invited us over for dinner about a week ago, and it was going smoothly, and I was doing most of the talking, which is something that Colton prefers because he tries to minimize interactions. If he talks about work or friends, I've noticed that his parents tend to act disinterested or sometimes even critical for no reason at all. Anyways, his mom asked what I was doing this upcoming weekend, and I was honest, saying that I'm driving home because it's the anniversary of my sister passing away, and I always spend that time with my family. His mom knows that I lost my sister, so this is not new information. It came up when we first met because she kept asking about family, and I couldn't avoid telling her about it. The conversation slowly withered out then, but now she asked questions on top of questions that made me uncomfortable. I finally said that I didn't want to talk about this right now, and I apologized, saying that the topic made me sad. She then had the audacity to scoff and said something that made my heart stop. She said to me, "So you're willing to let your sister's memory fade away? Pardon me for wanting to keep her alive by talking about her." When she said this, Colton got pissed. He helped me out of my seat, and he walked me to our car before going back inside and grabbing our things, and I cried the entire way home. Well, she invited us over for dinner in 2 weeks to try and make things right. Colton thinks that we should go, but I'm really afraid that I'll have a meltdown if I see her that soon. He's a little upset because she's blowing up his phone about it, and this is what he's trying to avoid. Apparently, she also told his siblings what happened because Colton's sister, who is one of my good friends, called me up saying that I'm being unkind by not giving her a chance to apologize. I really don't want to talk to her right now, and I'm not saying forever, but just not right now. I've told my friends and half of them are torn because I will have to see her again eventually, and waiting it out might make it harder because right now I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. You're creating some necessary distance from someone who said some awful things to you. She was being intrusive and she was making you sad, and that in my opinion is so inappropriate. And the fact that she said, "Oh, okay, I guess we'll let your sister's memory fade away. Sorry for bringing her up. I just wanted to keep her alive." Like, why would she say that? That's so rude and so mean. And I totally understand where Colton's coming from as well, because he's probably like, "Listen, I just want this to go away." But if I was in your shoes, I would feel the same way. This lady said something absolutely unmistakably rude, and she did this about someone who passed away. Like, that part alone makes this so inappropriate, it's not even funny. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for wanting to have space away from his mom, because the way she acted, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for signing up for a marathon last minute that my friend was also participating in? Because after she found out, she freaked out on me, saying that running is her thing and that I have no right to run in anything ever again. Because right now I'm very confused by her reaction, and I'm starting to second guess if I did the right thing or if I really did overstep some boundaries that I might not be aware of. Because right now I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I recently signed up for a marathon a week before the race after finding out that I would need a new rotator cuff surgery. I haven't been able to climb, which is my first love in life, but I've always enjoyed running casually. I've done a few races before, one marathon without any training, so I felt like I could probably do it again. And it's something that keeps me motivated and gives me a sense of accomplishment, especially as I'm preparing for an upcoming surgery. My friend was planning to run the marathon but hadn't trained until the week of, and I figured that the both of us could run really slowly together. The whole week I was trying to find a bib, and I told her that I was planning to sign up as well. Now she was fine with that until I told her I finally found a bib, and then she got really upset. I had posted on Facebook saying that I was going to run it last minute, and she just freaked out on me. She told me that running this marathon was her thing and feels like I'm trying to take over something that's special to her. She said that me posting about it on Facebook would overshadow her post, but I never saw it that way. I just thought that we could even support each other during the run. She accused me of being an awful friend and then said some really terrible things about me. Now at the run itself, I lost her at the first mile. I texted her like 5 times and called her 3 times, and she ignored every single one of them. She then called me 2 hours later, and she's 3 miles behind me and tells me to stop and wait for her. Now at this point, I had decided to run the marathon for myself, and I would see her at the end, so I just said no, which she then insisted is a sign that I'm a selfish and unsupportive friend. She was so mad that I was ahead of her that she quit at mile 16 and cut the course to finish with a better time than me, which I mean is fine. I finished with a good time and I was proud of myself in the end. But even still, she is insistent that running is her thing and says I'm not allowed to engage in it, which feels literally insane to me. She was originally going to help me with post-surgery stuff, but now she's decided not to, saying she feels betrayed by me doing the marathon. But I don't feel like running a race should be something that belongs to one person, especially since it's something that I love as well. But maybe I missed something in how I approached it. So am I the jerk for signing up for a marathon, even though my friend feels that I'm stepping in her turf? What should I do? No, this is not even a problem to begin with. Your friend's an idiot for being like, no, running is my thing. For starters, she's only upset that you got in this race because you are definitely faster than her. Like seriously, you were were 3 miles ahead of her. Like, what's going on right now? So that's probably the number one reason why she just didn't want you to be there, which in my opinion is just a stupid reason to begin with. Like, marathons are for anybody. Anyone can sign up for them. And the fact that she's trying to gatekeep running, in my opinion, is insane. Like, this really is some bizarre behavior. And if this was what revealed that she's a crazy psycho friend, then I think this is probably the best gift she could have possibly given you. Because at the end of the day, nobody owns an activity. You're literally just trying to stay healthy after an injury, and the fact that she wants to take that away from you, in my opinion, is incredibly weird. My idiotic corporate managers make the dumbest policy change on planet Earth by allowing children to eat for free at our restaurant every single Sunday, resulting in some of the most chaotic nights of service I've ever experienced in my life, with this restaurant eventually having to shut down. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm pretty happy overall with where I work now, but this is a tale from years ago at my first serving job. Two things stand out about the following issue. One, I am surprised how normal we can find stuff at our first jobs. Then later when we get experienced, we can see how actually insane they were. And two, we can see how utterly clueless corporate can be. I will add this place I'm talking about did eventually go out of business, so I'm honestly not really surprised. So during college, I worked at a family-oriented Italian place. They tried to appeal to the higher end of casual dining. Pretty decent food, but nothing super special. But we were oh so family friendly. So corporate decided they wanted us to be the place everyone in the area thought of when taking their family out to eat. So they implemented the dreaded 3-word policy. They said that kids eat free. Now this is not an unheard of policy, but most places I've heard of that do this do it on a slower day like Tuesday just to get a little extra pop. But no, our higher-ups decided to make this all day Sunday. But wait, you might be saying, don't most places that do that have it with minimum purchase? Places I've been to have a policy like, oh, 1 kid's meal per adult meal. And true, we did have a minimum, but for every adult entree purchased, you would then get 4 free kids meals. So guess what ended up happening? And you probably know, but I'm just gonna spell it out. Our kids meals came with bread, super salad, an entree, and dessert. And our cheapest adult entrees were $7. So we did become the place that people took their families out to eat. And this was their whole families. And this was every single Sunday. It was completely common, if not normal, for nearly 20 people to come in that were essentially what you would expect to see on a weekday field trip to a Chuck E. Cheese. I mean, we were by far the cheapest place in town. You would have a 10-top where 2 parents had 8 kids. Parents order the cheapest entrees and waters, and the whole bill for a 10-top would come out to be like $16. Now, we had auto gratuity on parties of 8 or more, but seriously, so what? That was still less than $3 for a 10-top. We would easily work a double on Sunday, have no tables smaller than the occasional 4-top, get 20% tips on every table, and still be clearing like $6 to $9 an hour. Oh, and by the way, Sundays were mandatory. And as a fun bonus, we had a carpet. So you can imagine the absolute disaster that was the restaurant by Sunday night. No restaurant in the city was as cheap as we were on Sunday. You can't take 10 people out to McDonald's and eat for less than $20, let alone get a full course meal for everybody. It took corporate a year to finally realize how bad our Sunday numbers actually were, because we were essentially operating at a loss. And sure, specials are there to get people in the door, but when they know Sunday's the only day they get that deal, then that's the day they're only gonna show up. Corporate also finally noticed how low our numbers were on adult entrees. Just imagine you want to go to a nice restaurant, but when you and your day walk in, you see 75 plus kids, sometimes literally running around the dining room. I can't tell you the number of times I saw a group of adults walk in, look around, and walk right back out on a Sunday. Plus, those that stayed usually had to contend with a wait, and even more would be standing around the lobby, listening to the horrendous noise, and then just change their minds. Finally, and I mean finally, corporate realized their mistake and changed the policy, and eventually they made it into 1 kid's meal per entree. I worked the Sunday after it happened, and my god, it was a nightmare. Now, my general manager at this time was a pretty smart cookie. She made signs saying this for the front door. She told the hostess to make sure to tell every guest with kids, even if it was more adults than kids, about the policy change. And yes, she was going to be enforcing it. There would be no comps because nobody told us, or if they complained that it was cheaper last week. Well, customers were having a full-on meltdown in the lobby. It was funny, and I'm gonna be honest, also kind of sad. But look, I'm not a complete jerk. I'm sure for some of these families, this was the only way they could actually get to go out and have a restaurant experience. And I'm not gonna lie, I thought I was gonna have a blast that day seeing entitled Karens screaming to talk to a manager, and trust me, there were some, but I also saw little kids being led out of the lobby crying, saying, "But mom, you said we would have pizza tonight." One grown woman literally fell to her knees crying in the lobby. So after that, I wasn't at the company for much longer, maybe 2 or 3 months, but but Sundays quickly became the opposite. They were ghost towns for a while. A few of the more reasonable sized families came in, maybe only having to pay for 1 or 2 extra kids' meals, or splitting them for the younger kids. But we had already gotten the reputation of being a kid's place, and even though I quit, I still had friends that worked there long afterwards. They said that Sundays stayed dead, but at least they didn't have the sheer amount of cleaning or screaming that had become the normal after this stupid policy. Wow, that literally sounds like my worst nightmare. Like, what was corporate thinking? Did they really think that people would be reasonable and not try to take advantage of this and be like, oh my god, free food for our kids and we get to eat at a restaurant? Like, I'm in. That really sucks, and I'm sure that completely ruined the job for literally everybody there. And then for them to change the policy and be like, okay, we gotta enforce this. It's like at that point, you're being punished for corporate stupid decision. Like, how disconnected from your restaurant chain can you possibly be? So truly, I can only imagine trying to live through that, because that situation sounds absolutely miserable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My fiance leaves dishes to rot in the kitchen, but also gets mad at me when I try to clean them up. So now I'm incredibly confused, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my fiance and I have been together for over a year, and we moved in together a few months ago. I love her very much, and I want to work through things together, but when it comes to cleaning, there's been a lot of issues recently, and we really only fight over the dishes, and it's been a reoccurring thing that's making me question my sanity. I don't know if I should just let it go, or if she's being completely stubborn. Basically, she leaves huge piles of rotting pots and dishes of food on the counters and stoves for several days, even up to weeks if I don't clean them. And then she gets mad that I didn't clean them how she liked it. She thinks that sponges are dirty, as she works in a microbiology lab, and I should be wiping things down with my bare hands and water, while also saying that I don't clean things well enough. I called her crazy once for thinking like that, and then I apologized. But if I'm being honest, I still think she's a bit neurotic. I can't cook or wash my hands properly with all the dishes in the sink, and I have to do them and put them away before she comes home just to avoid any kind of argument. I've told her that I found leaving food out to rot and mold is absolutely disgusting, and it makes it harder for me to live this way, but she has not taken any of this seriously. She got a mini dishwasher to fix the issue, but it still has not helped. I'm pretty sure that she thinks that it helps, but I resent that it takes from what limited counter space we have and doesn't do much in the way of rotting food literally everywhere. The core of my frustration is that I go to work and go to classes a lot more than she does, and when I come home at night to an apartment that looks worse than I left it, it really sucks. I'm currently recovering from a major surgery, and I have pushed myself a bit too much while cleaning up after myself and after her. I mean, her apartment was absolutely filthy when I met her, and I assumed that I would do the dishes, which is fine, but being met with yelling and hovering when I do them is honestly stressing me out, and at this point, I don't really know what to do. She has diagnosed and treated ADHD and depression, and was raised by people who kind of suck, so I've been giving her some kind of grace, but at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, seriously, this is insane. I'm sorry, but there's just no good reason for her to not only leave food out, but then complain when you start to clean it up. Like, I don't know about you, but I would prefer having it cleaned up and taken care of, instead of micromanaging how it's cleaned up when she's not even doing it herself. And sure, she might think that sponges are dirty, but has she looked at her countertop and stove? It's literally covered in weeks worth of rotting food. How can that be any cleaner? So for her to hover over you about the dishes that she literally left out for weeks, while also doing nothing about these dishes, in my opinion, is so hypocritical it's not even funny. And it's especially bad that she just doesn't seem to care. So no, I don't think you've done anything wrong, because the alternative to not cleaning up this mess is literally a rotting infestation of God knows what kind of bacteria. And that is something you definitely do not want to live with. My boyfriend is demanding that I don't see my family after he got rejected from attending a family get-together. And despite the fact that I tried to explain that it's really not that deep, my boyfriend is refusing to see my point of view. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female, and my boyfriend of 2 years and I recently got into a heated argument. It started when I asked him if he could drive me to my brother's house so I could build a PC with him. I was originally going to be driven by my other brother, but he had plans so he couldn't do it. After I got the yes from my boyfriend, I texted my brother to make sure that it was okay, and to my surprise, he said no. He followed up that text message later saying that he wanted it to be me and my other brother so he could finally show us his fully furnished apartment. So I told my boyfriend there was a change of plans, but when I said this, he was very offended by the rejection, saying that this was an awful thing to do. I called him up and he was really upset, but in the middle of the call, I got another call from my brother, so I excused myself to answer my brother's call. It actually turned turned out to be a group call with me and all three of my brothers. We worked out the plans for me to come over, but in the middle of the conversation, I asked why my boyfriend couldn't just drive me because it would be more convenient for everybody. My brother said something along the lines of only wanting family over there and that he thought my boyfriend would be too busy anyways because he works over the weekend. That's when I found out that building the PC takes way longer than I thought, and I would be spending the night from Saturday to Sunday. Now this is important because my boyfriend had the day off on Saturday but not for Sunday. After we finally worked everything out, I called my boyfriend again to try and console him and explain the situation more to him. He was still really upset, but I explained that my brother only wanted family over and also assumed that he'd be working. But when I said that, he actually got more upset, which is unusual, especially because my boyfriend is typically a really cool-headed person and never yells. After a bit of arguing, he said he wouldn't go if he were in my position. I asked him to elaborate, and he said that if it were his brother excluding me, then he wouldn't go to his place. I told him I don't think that's true. My boyfriend's brother lives at home right now, but when he had an apartment, I was almost never invited over. And the one time that I was, I got ignored the entire time. His brother clearly doesn't like me and usually just ignores me, but has also actively talked crap about me and my boyfriend's relationship behind our backs. He also still went to his brother's place whenever he got invited, unless he just didn't feel like it. He still regularly hangs out with his brother at events where all the kids in the family are invited, even the brother's fiance's little sister and her boyfriend, but not me. And I explained that to him. Well, he then got upset and said he didn't want to talk about this anymore. I asked him if he still thinks I shouldn't see my brother over this, and he responded by saying I can do whatever I want. Later, he called me because we usually call to update each other at night, and he said he felt like my brother doesn't like him. He thought there was progress there, but doesn't think that anymore because of this situation. We almost ended up arguing again, but I said we should just talk later when we're not as upset. I'm just honestly not sure what to do. I agree with him that it really hurts being rejected like that and feeling excluded, but I think it's unreasonable to expect me not to see my brother, especially when I'm not meeting up with him just to hang out, but to build a PC that I bought, and I can't build by myself at home. I also tried to explain that my brother doesn't hate him and doesn't show a lot of displays of affection, even to me. He seems neutral most of the time, but will talk to him and occasionally joke around. It is important to note that when I told my boyfriend that, he responded by saying, no, he doesn't. So what do I say to explain to my boyfriend my perspective? Or is my judgment clouded in some kind of way? Do I need to comfort my boyfriend more about this and ask for more of a reason why? Me and my boyfriend are usually really good about communicating through issues, especially after dating for more than 2 years. But this situation is really messy, and I want to make sure I'm not being unfair to him. I would never want him to feel unsupported, especially because I know what it's like to be rejected by your partner's family. What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk here, and I think the fact that your boyfriend's like, oh, I wouldn't go to his house if I were you, with him basically saying like, yeah, don't see your family, like that's really weird and just really immature. Because the truth is, your brother has not rejected your boyfriend. Like literally, this is a very extenuating circumstance, and you spending time with your family doesn't mean that they don't like your boyfriend. So honestly, I kind of think your boyfriend's being super immature because this situation is completely overblown. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my friend's dinner after he changed his order last minute, making the price way higher than I was expecting? Here's what happened. Okay, so I invited my friend to dinner at a nicer restaurant last weekend. We were both in the mood for something a little more upscale, but I still wanted to keep it relatively affordable. We talked about it beforehand, and I suggested a couple of places that weren't too pricey, and my friend seemed on board. When we got there, we both ordered dishes that were reasonably priced. I was planning to pay for the meal since I had some extra cash, and I thought it would be a nice thing to do. Nothing crazy, but just a chill dinner. When the waiter came, my friend ordered a mid-range entree, but then when the waiter came back for drinks, he suddenly asked for a really expensive cocktail, which was way more than I was getting. After the waiter left, he also added an appetizer that was even pricier than the drink. I started feeling uncomfortable because the total was quickly adding up to way more than I expected. It was way over what we had talked about. When the bill came, I mentioned to my friend that it was more than I had planned, and he just shrugged and said, "You said you'd pay for it though." Now at that point, I felt kind of stuck, but I didn't think it was fair for me to cover the whole thing when he changed his order so much. So I told him that I wasn't paying for everything and that he should cover his own meal. He then got really upset, saying I was breaking my word and making him look bad in front of the waiter. He ended up paying for his portion, but things were super awkward and now he's been acting incredibly distant. So am I the jerk for refusing to pay for his part of the dinner after he changed his order so many times? I felt like I was being reasonable, but right now I'm wondering if I handled it wrong. What should I do? No, you're not the jerk here. Your friend absolutely tried to play you. He knew you were were gonna pay for it, so he said to himself, okay, I'm gonna order all the expensive stuff. Like, that's not fair at all, like seriously. And his reaction of being like, oh, you're just gonna pay for it. Like, that is so telling to me that he just didn't care about the price, and he was clearly taking advantage of your kindness. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because your friend was clearly trying to take advantage of you. Am I the jerk for missing out on another big moment for my siblings' lives after I told them that no, I didn't want to be involved in the stuff they were doing? Because right now I'm being guilt-tripped by my dad and my stepmom, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, my dad is so inconsistent about being in my life. He and my mom divorced when I was 1 year old, but he bailed days after I was born. He came back when I was 8 months old, and my mom let him stay a month before realizing he wasn't serious about being a family with us, and he was just using her for a place to stay. Once he realized that she wasn't going to give in, he bailed again. He was in my life for a year when I was like 3 or 4 years old. The next time was when I was 8 years old. He was in my life for a few months under supervision, but then he left again, and he made 2 more appearances when I was 10. He didn't really pay child support either, which is something that I learned this summer. Some money was given for me, but probably less than $400 in the last 16 years if what he said is right. When I was 13 years old, he moved here for good, or so he says. He was married again, and he had some kids with his wife. He went back to restart visitation with me, got some supervised visits again that eventually became 1 overnight a month. But now I have to spend every other weekend at his house, even though I don't want to. And I did speak to a judge about my wishes, but he told me it was in my best interest to have a relationship with my family. I really don't like being there, and I try to only sleep in the bed I have at his house. I never take anything I care about, and I don't have the room personalized or anything like that. The thing about all of this is that my dad and his wife encourage their kids to spend time with me and engage with me. They like having me there, and they told me before they wish I'd spend more time there and with them. The kids did nothing wrong, but I don't want to focus on a relationship with them. I feel nothing for them, but it's expected that I'd be there for the big moments in their lives, not just by their parents, but my dad's parents, who I don't really know outside of some of the time I spent with him. I also feel like I need to be a good brother, and they expect me to take that role very seriously, which I find crazy, since I don't know any of these people all that much, and honestly, I don't want to. If it's not my dad's weekends, I do miss the big stuff, and I don't try to be there for them. For example, I got invited to go trick-or-treating with them on Halloween, but I said no. I then got a reply back that they really wanted me to come, but I didn't. And then I got sent so many text messages from my dad's phone and phones that I assume are his wife's and his parents, claiming that I'm awful for missing another big moment for my half-siblings. I then blocked all the other numbers, but my dad's number is still doing the same garbage. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk. Your dad's a massive hypocrite. This new family is literally his redo at being a father. He failed the first time, so now he's like, oh yeah, let's try again. And suddenly he's Mr. Righteous, and he's like, oh, you don't want to miss the big moments in these kids' lives. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? You were never in the original poster's life at all. This is so hypocritical, it's not even funny. And honestly, going trick-or-treating is not some make or break moment in a kid's life. That is not some big moment. Like, that is such a weird overestimation, it's not even funny. So no, you're not the jerk here, because your dad is being super hypocritical. Because if he actually cared about you in the beginning, he would have taken more time to be there for you, instead of showing up later with a new family to try it all again. Am I the jerk for not allowing my sister to move in with me for something that she did 12 years ago involving the passing of my cat? Here's what happened. Okay, so my sister and I have never really had a close relationship. We don't dislike each other, but we have very different personalities and have never really clicked as siblings. When I was 14 years old, I started begging my parents for a kitten. Finally, on my 16th birthday, they gave me a beautiful gray cat. I quickly became very attached, and I took full responsibility for his care. One day while I was at school, my sister decided to bake chocolate cookies and thought that it was a good idea to give one to my cat. I didn't find out until hours later when I came home and saw the terrible state that he was in. I immediately called my dad, and we rushed him to the vet, but it was too late. He passed away in my arms on the way home, and I was devastated, crying so much that I even threw up. When we got back home, I went straight to my room, and my dad went to talk to my sister. My dad is usually a calm person, but I could hear him yelling from my room, but I was too heartbroken to make out the words. At some point while I was lying on my bed crying, my sister stormed into my room, saying it was my fault our parents were mad at her. I don't usually like confrontations, but in that moment, I snapped at her. My parents eventually had to separate us physically, and after that, we went back to ignoring each other, with no change to our relationship at all. Years later, I was able to move out thanks to a friend's dad, who gave me a great deal on a 3-bedroom apartment. I work from home, earning decent decent money, and I started fostering cats. Then, recently, my mom called me. After some small talk, she brought up my sister, explaining that she was having a tough time and she might get kicked out. My mom then asked if she could stay with me until she got back on her feet, since they live 4 hours away from her job and I live much closer. Well, I told my mom no and explained that I still don't trust her around my cats after what happened. My mom said that she understood, but also said that I should not hold on to something from 12 years ago. She added that we should be there for each other when she and my dad are gone, but I said no. She then accepted my answer and then hung up. The next day, my sister called, which was unexpected since we rarely talk. I had barely said hello when she started questioning why I wouldn't let her stay temporarily. So I gave her the explanation I had given my mom, and she got upset, saying I had never done anything for her and that I was the worst brother. But once she said that, I just hung up. Since then, she's been sending daily messages, apologizing, and asking for me to reconsider. My mom thinks that I should give her a chance, saying it could be an opportunity to mend our relationship. My dad, on the other hand, supports my decision and says that he would not want her in his place either. The pressure is now wearing on me. I don't want to see her out on the street or cause her to lose her job in some kind of way, but I can't forget what she did to my cat. So am I the jerk for not wanting her in my home? What should I do? Honestly, I don't blame you for not wanting her in your house, because if that happened to me, I think I would also still hold a grudge 12 years later. And sure, she didn't do it intentionally, but honestly, one mistake like that is more than enough for me to not trust someone around my animals. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk, because this is something that you absolutely need to be careful of. My mom has secretly been dating my ex-boyfriend, who cheated on me and practically ruined my life. So now, after I uninvited her to my wedding, she says that I'm being selfish and that I need to let go of the past and move on with my life, even going as far as trying to turn my fiance against me by telling him all the secrets about my previous relationship. And now my family is literally split down the middle, as the people who are siding with my mom claim that I'm betraying the family and that I need to let go of the past. But at this point, I feel like I'm about to have a full-blown anxiety attack because I seriously do not know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been engaged to my fiance for a while now, and I was genuinely excited to have my mom involved in planning our wedding. Our family has always prided itself on being close-knit, but recently that sense of unity has been completely shattered. Over the past few months, I noticed my mom's behavior changing dramatically. She began canceling plans at the last minute, often citing vague reasons or saying that she was too busy. I tried not to jump to conclusions, but something just felt off. The last time we met, though, she seemed distant and preoccupied, constantly checking her phone. Now, I just brushed it off, thinking she might be dealing with work stress or some kind of personal issues. But after weeks of this unsettling behavior, I decided I couldn't keep ignoring my gut feeling. So I confronted her one evening when we were having dinner. I asked if everything was okay and if there was something that she wanted to talk about. She hesitated, looking uncomfortable, before finally admitting that she had been seeing someone else. I then decided to press for details, and to my shock, she insisted that it was someone I wouldn't know. At that point, my curiosity and worry spiraled into full-blown anxiety. I respected her privacy, but my instinct was screaming that something was wrong. I mean, what if she was hiding something bigger? A few days later, she showed up at my house unannounced. Her demeanor was tense, and I could tell that she was anxious about something. I thought maybe she was finally going to introduce her new boyfriend, which I was hopeful about despite my earlier suspicions. Instead, she dropped a bombshell. She had been dating my ex for the past few months, and when she said this, I was utterly floored. My ex and I had a tumultuous relationship that ended really badly. He had cheated on me multiple times, leaving me heartbroken and struggling to trust ever again. My mom knew the pain that he had caused me and how hard I fought to move on from that toxic relationship. When I confronted her about why she would choose to date someone who had caused me so much pain, she claimed that it was a different time and insisted that he had changed. And at that point, I couldn't believe my ears. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a complete violation of trust. She had kept this secret from me, knowing how much I had struggled with my feelings towards him. I felt completely blindsided and emotionally shattered. In a moment of anger and hurt, I told her that she was no longer welcome at my wedding. I explained that having her there would only serve as a painful reminder of the hurt that he caused, and that I didn't want her standing by my side while she was with him. Well, her reaction completely shocked me. She broke down in tears, accusing me of being unreasonable and selfish. She said she deserved to be happy too, and that I was trying to control her life. Now, the fallout from this has been really intense. My family is now divided. Some relatives agree with me, stating that I have every right to protect my special day from that kind of emotional turmoil, but others, however, think that I'm overreacting and that I should simply accept her choice and move on. The whole situation has created this unbearable tension during what should be one of the happiest times of my life, things took a darker turn when I discovered my mom had been talking to my fiance behind my back. One night, I overheard a conversation between them, and I was shocked to hear her sharing intimate details about my past with my ex, things that I had never told anybody. She was recounting my heartbreak and the struggles I faced after our breakup. I felt my heart race as I listened, horrified by what I heard. Was she trying to turn him against me? Was she attempting to justify her relationship with my ex by painting me as unstable and overly emotional? Now, with the wedding day approaching, I'm filled with anxiety and dread. My mom has started posting about the betrayal on social media, portraying me as the villain. She is reaching out to family members for sympathy, saying I'm being cruel and unloving, and some relatives are siding with her, which only adds to the pressure. I feel isolated and betrayed by the very person I thought I could trust the most. To make matters worse, I received a text from my mom asking to meet up. She said she had something important to discuss, which honestly just sent my heart racing. What could she possibly want to say that could change everything? Was she planning to apologize? Or was this just another ploy to manipulate me further? The uncertainty is driving me crazy. I've tried to talk to my fiance about it, but he is caught in the middle and feels uncomfortable discussing it any further. He loves me and wants to support me, but I can tell he's also trying to navigate this tricky situation with my mom. So to the internet, I need to know, am I overreacting by uninviting my mom to my wedding after she started dating my ex? I genuinely feel torn and hurt, and I now seriously don't know what to do. This is mind-blowing. Like seriously, this is actually insane. Your mom is dating your ex-boyfriend who cheated on you. Let's just unpack that for a second. Your mom, who probably sat by your side and watched as you cry and your whole life fall apart, is now actively dating the person who ruined that life? Like, are you kidding me right now? Your mom's a piece of garbage. Like, that needs to be said out loud because this is like unbelievable. Who in their right mind would be like, oh man, this person ruined my daughter's life. Oh well, I guess I have to date them now. Good thing that's in the past. It's like, no, what are you doing? You don't do that to your child. Like, that's insane behavior. And the fact that she's trying to be like, wow, you're so selfish. I can't believe how unkind you're being. Like, dude, you are not the victim here. If anything, you're the assailant. Like, you've got to be kidding. But for me, the biggest red flag here is the fact that she talked to your fiance without your knowledge. Like, the second she did that, in my opinion, that would have been like the nail in the coffin. That is so wildly inappropriate, it's not even funny. So no, you're not overreacting by uninviting her to your wedding, because this quite literally is going to cause so much unnecessary drama on your big day, because that man ruined your life, forcing you to rebuild from the ground up. And if I was in your shoes, that is absolutely something I would never want to relive again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My former coworker tried to start an affair with me and is constantly trying to find me at work and reconnect, despite the fact that I've blocked her on everything. And now, after a year later and me thinking that all of this was behind me, she has popped back up into my life in a way that honestly is really freaking me out. Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I thought I had put this to rest, but I'm worried that this is starting to chase after me. Back in June of 2020, I made friends with a coworker when I got moved to start a program at a new location. She worked in sales and I did all the fulfillment. It went from basic coworker banter and complaining to her sharing about her personal life. I went through a messy breakup at the time and used this as a distraction from going home to an empty house and dealing with my own thoughts. She then started talking to me about her husband. He wasn't involved with the kids, he had some medical concerns because of how he lives his life, and she brought up how she doesn't get along with her stepdaughter, and her family despises her husband, and his family doesn't like her. When I suggested that she talk to her husband about this, she said he doesn't listen, and he doesn't understand her like I do. She also started telling me about her 3 biological kids as if I knew them, or was more involved with them in some kind of way. But then, if her husband was around, I didn't exist. This then quickly escalated as she started asking compatibility questions, and if we thought differently. Then she pursued a physical affair by inviting me over for a fake emergency, only to then clarify that her husband and kids were not home. Now, this never wound up happening, but she became possessive of me. If a female friend or coworker would take my attention away from her, she would get jealous, and it was obvious to everybody. Clients picked up on what was happening, and other managers saw how she would act around me. She would make up excuses to call me after work about work, or just text me all the time. She would get extremely upset if I didn't text her back, and I had multiple coworkers telling me how she acted, including one who mentioned that she talked about me more in a few months than she has ever talked about her husband in 12 years. When no one was around, she would tease me, try to get alone with me, and chase me in the showroom to stop me from leaving. She She always got in my way and would act like a little girl teasing and blocking me until I would acknowledge her. Well, after all of this, I put in for a transfer and I got it. When I would visit her location, she would text me asking why I wouldn't come in and say hi. She got released as part of downsizing not long after, and she would constantly find reasons to text me, even if it was just a bunch of nonsense, and one time made an emergency out of a dead battery just to try and get me to come and help her out. Well, fast forward and I met a girl, and I realized that things with my former coworker were so bad, so I just blocked her. I blocked her on socials and all of her numbers. I cut all of that off because I wanted things to work with the girl I met. It's now been a year, and the coworker has come into my work and asked about me and when I'm in. I also noticed that she was checking out my new art page on Instagram. She was watching my stories and all this other stuff. I didn't think I would need to block her, but it's been a year, and she is still trying to stay part of my life and constantly asks about me at work. And it also would not be hard for her to find out where I live. So truly, why is she so obsessed with me? What should I do? Okay, I don't know why you haven't reported her to somebody at this point, because seriously, this is super creepy. Like, you need to go to human resources or even possibly the police, because this lady is actively following your every move. Like, obviously, I would block her on everything, but also if I was in your shoes, I would tell her straight up, listen, I don't like you. Your actions are weird and creepy, and I don't want you in my life. Leave me alone. And then keep that as a document just in case she still decides to come after you. Because what she's doing right now is insane behavior, and you do not deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not telling my dad's wife more about my medical condition after she disrespected my dead mother? Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old male, and I have a form of epilepsy that has needed to be accommodated for my entire life. I don't have seizures every day, but I am on medications, and I do still get seizures, so I need to be careful about what I look at or what I do for too long. My mom passed away when I was 10 years old, and last year my dad remarried. I was still living with him at the time, but a couple weeks after the wedding, his wife went into my study space and she broke a photo of my mom and a glass figurine that my mom used to own, all while she was cleaning my room. She apologized for the photo but brushed off the figurine, even though she knew what it was, and she did it because she thought it was ugly. I asked her why in the world did she go in there in the first place, but I guess she had to go through my room to get to the study space, and she told me she was cleaning and wanted to do something nice. She told me accidents happen, and so I asked her how she happened to just break the photo frame holding my mom's photo and a figurine that my mom used to own. Well, she told me I'm reading too much into it, and that I should be grateful that she was willing to even look at anything that belonged to my mom. The fight that we had got so bad that I decided to move out of my dad's house because I did not trust her with anything of my mom's. I also did not want her to act like she could just go into my room whenever she wanted. Dad wanted me to calm down and to let him find a replica of the figurine to make up for it. He also wanted me to stay, but I told him I would not after her attitude about the figurine and what she said about being grateful that she'd look at that stuff in the first place. He worried a lot about me, but I moved in with my grandparents, so I was safe. And I had other people there just in case, even though I don't actually need that. He just worries about me in that way. After that incident, I simply don't like my dad's wife, and I keep my distance from her. But he has confided in her about my condition and the stress, and she was upset that I never talked to her about it, and she has tried to reach out so that I will fill her in more about it and the impact on me so she knows better. But I have refused. I do not want to discuss my medical information with her or my health. She said we're family and she needs to know what to look out for, and she said I'll need to be around her again sometime or I could lose my dad, so then we would have to come together and I should just let her take care of me too. Well, I didn't reply to several of her attempts, and the last time 4 days ago I did reply and I told her she is not my parent and she is not my actual family. In fact, she's not a person I live with and she's not my doctor, and it's none of her business. She told me I'm making life difficult and to think more of my dad, who deserves to see us get along and be a family. She also said she deserves to know important stuff like this. So am I the jerk for not wanting to give her this information? What should I do? No, you're not a jerk. This is so weird and intrusive. For starters, I kind of agree with the original poster where they assume that, yeah, this lady went in there and broke those objects on purpose, all in spite of your mother. I'm willing to bet the photo and the figurine were in a safe spot, so you weren't just leaving it lying around for anyone to run into. So she probably had to go out of her way to find it and break it on purpose, which seriously, based on the way she's acting, I would not put it behind her that she might have tried to do that. So with that in mind, this lady does not deserve to know anything about you because her behavior, in my opinion, was completely inappropriate, and that is not something that I would ever put up with for a second. My idiotic managers refuse to allow me to help out with other departments, despite the fact that I know way more about all of this than they do. do. So when the moment was right, I decided to maliciously comply, causing a massive backup in our store in a way that they have never recovered from ever since. Here's what happened. So about 10 years ago, I applied to work at a retail store selling different types of tech. It is a rather large chain in the United Kingdom and can get pretty busy, especially after 5 o'clock or even during the holidays or some kind of sale. When I applied for the job, I wanted to go to the computing department as I was very passionate about different builds and had some experience in building my own PC. Instead, I was temporarily placed on white goods for training, even after I've admitted that I know absolutely nothing about them. But no, apparently this knowledge should have been inherited through my genes since I'm a girl, so I must know about them and be very good. So I bit my tongue and I waited, as I needed money and I was fresh out of university. Well, about a few months in, I realized I'm not going to be transferred to the computing department no matter how much I wanted to. My sales were good, but the manager wouldn't budge, as they were scared I might give the wrong kind of advice or something like that. Now, it was the start of a school term, and the store was getting pretty busy. A couple came in wanting to buy a PC for their teenage kid to game on, and I wanted to help them as a fellow gamer myself, but instead I got rudely pulled back by my manager and was told that unless I was assigned to a specific department, we are not allowed to help customers or advise them. So he fetched another colleague who carried on assisting the parents. Now, as it was quiet in my department, I was doing some tidying up around the store, and I heard the colleagues trying to sell the parents one of the Apple PCs, saying that they will be great for gaming and all professionals use them. Now, let me tell you, they are not the best machines for gaming, and if you are going into heavier games, they are likely not going to run that well or just be incompatible with the operating system. I don't know what else the colleague said, but the parents believed him and they got an iMac for the kid. The manager was very proud of the colleague and told me to use him as an example of a good sale for the store, but I told him I could have topped it and the customer will come back with a return. But once again, I was told not to go to the computing department. So after listening to their garbage, I decided to maliciously comply. A few days later, it was a busy day in the store, especially with PCs due to the back to school sale. A few people were off sick due to being overworked, so the computing department had like 2 people on the floor, including the work colleague who sold the iMac. Well, the parents came through the door with the PC they got, which usually means something broke down or they want to return it. They saw the guy who sold the PC to them and started heading his way. He saw them too and decided it's a good time to go on lunch, leaving one colleague on the floor in the department. The parents are visibly getting angry and try to go to the cash register, but after being in the queue, they're told to catch another colleague in the tech department as we can't process refunds at the till for large items. The parents then approach me as I don't have much to do and they ask me for help. Now, I would be happy to do so, but remembering what the manager said, I had to tell them that I can't, as I'm not allowed to do anything with the PC department as it is a store policy. The parents approach more colleagues and keep hearing the same excuse, and obviously they are getting more and more angry, which is the same thing that's happening to other customers who literally just want to buy something, but they literally can't, since only people in the computing department are allowed to sell stuff for computers. They try to grab the only person on the floor, but he is already busy with other customers and can't assist them, while the other colleague responsible for the sale signed out for the day and the other is late. In about 20 minutes, there's a massive queue by the tills of angry customers demanding to speak to a manager. The poor person at the till has no choice but to fetch the store manager as well as the floor managers, all due to the amount of angry customers they were dealing with. Well, at this point, they try shifting the blame on us, the other store colleagues, but I mentioned about what the other manager said about not touching anything in the tech department or even helping customers, as we are not authorized, and since it is a company policy, and we haven't received the training, so we have to comply. Now, of course, it makes customers even more angry, and they feel like their time is being wasted, resulting in a commotion by the tills and further delays for other customers. Now, I'm not sure how the entire situation ended, as I was grabbed by an older lady to help her, but that day we had a lot of complaints on different websites about the policy, as well as store staff refusing to help out, as it is not their department. We then had a few brainstorming sessions afterwards about how we could reduce complaints, with none of the ideas taken on board. You would hope they would learn something and change the policy, but no! They gave extra training to the people already in the computing department and allowed other colleagues to sell smaller items like mice or keyboards, as well as gaming consoles, games, printers, but just not the laptops or the PCs or the virtual reality, which also resulted in more complaints. The last time I was there to buy my mom's new laptop, as I had a voucher, the situation seemed to have stayed the same, as we ended up waiting about 45 minutes for someone to push the sale through. But at least I got the chance to complain to the store manager, as well as telling him everything that I think about their stupid store policy. Wow, you would think after a debacle like this, they would change their policy and be like, okay, we've got to switch this up. And why would they not let you go into that department and help out, or even bring you on board? You had innate knowledge about this type of thing. Like, you knew exactly what you were doing, and you could have saved a lot of people a lot of money by helping them get the right PC or like the right laptop. Like, your managers were just complete morons. But despite all of this, I love the way you maliciously complied and basically shoved this right back in their face. Because truly, these people absolutely suck, and they deserve to get thrown under the bus in the way that they did. Am I the jerk for not doing my coworkers' dirty dishes and cleaning up after them inside the office kitchen? Because right now, I've basically been labeled as not a team player, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this debate has been going on for years. I've worked at the same small office for many years at this point. Before this company, I had always worked in larger offices, and at no times have I ever felt obligated to clean up after other people in the office. My current office is split down the middle, 3 women and 3 men. As it happens, one of my coworkers, let's call her Kay, is close to the owners of the company who also work in the office, and she has always been the one to clean up the kitchen mess. Maybe it's because she feels closest to them, or because it makes her feel good about herself, I'm not really sure. She used to often complain about feeling obligated to clean up the kitchen mess, but lately I see that things with her have changed. Her feelings have now morphed into her saying, well, if it's dirty, just clean it, there's no complaints. And because I'm not going to clean up after adults in the office, she has decided that I'm not a team player. Since this has been going on for so long, I see how I have become extra careful to not leave a mess of my own in the kitchen. I clean up what I dirty immediately, and if I bring something from home to eat, I pack it up and I clean it at home. I also eat out quite a bit. One other thing to mention is that I have not heard her talk to anyone else in the office about cleaning up after others. She only seems to have a problem with me. Is this because I vocalized that I won't participate in cleaning up after adults? I mean, honestly, I think the only reason this bothers me so much is because I've always considered myself to be a team player, and I know that she now considers me not to be one. And you would seriously have to see the look of disgust on her face during these conversations. So am I the jerk for not giving in and cleaning up after these adults in the office? Because right now, I'm still incredibly frustrated. No, that's so dumb. This lady's being so stupid by being like, well, you're not a team player by cleaning up after my mess. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? We are all adults here. There's no reason why you can't clean up after yourself. And the fact that she's trying to like guilt trip you into doing it, that in my opinion is super weird and so uncalled for. So no, you're not the jerk, because this really is incredibly petty. A crazy entitled couple tries to run our delivery van off the road, stating that if we didn't cater their upcoming party for free, they were going to sue us into oblivion and shut down our business. But after reviewing the camera footage that we had on the truck, I proved to them once and for all that they're not only lying, but also that they're gonna have some problems after I file a detailed police report. Here's what happened. So this happened sometime last year, but due to it being an open incident, I held off on sharing until now. In late winter, early spring of last year, I got a call in from the delivery driver that someone had brake checked them on the main road into town, and then they sped off. Luckily, it was after delivery was completed, so nothing delicate was on board. I take down the plate, the vehicle information, as well as all the standard stuff for an incident of road rage. But before I can finish up the call, the brake checkers actually called into our main office. Now, before I can complete the standard spiel, they immediately cut me off and start screaming. Right as I'm greeting them and saying the name of our catering business, the entitled man on the other line said, "Your jerk driver tried to run us off the road." Now, it's important to know that I know our driver. They are the least aggressive, most careful driver I have ever seen. They regularly deliver precarious items like wedding cakes without so much as disrupting them. If anything, they're too cautious, definitely not running people off the road. I say to him, "Excuse me, sir, but I don't think our delivery van would have tried to run you off the road intentionally. Were you perhaps traveling in the vehicle's blind spot? There are warning signs on the delivery van to avoid lingering in blind spots when the driver signals." And this was about as far as I could get with trying to be diplomatic, because these people freaked out on me. The entitled woman of this couple then said to me, "Why are you defending this jerk? This is some minimum wage idiot that probably doesn't even belong in this country." The man then chimed in and said, "Your driver tried to take us out, and you're making excuses? This is outrageous." I then said to them, "Sir, ma'am, please calm down. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of things." The entitled man continued, "Do you know who I am? I'll shut your whole company down. You listen to me, you little jerk. You better be ready to give us some hefty compensation, or we'll take this to the police and we will sue you." It was then that the woman came in with something that really sounded super sketchy. She said to me, "We have a party coming up, and if you'd agree to cater to it for free, we might let all of this go." Now, I have no doubt the look on my face when I heard that out of the woman's mouth must have been then one of the most exacerbated faces I've ever made. And at this point, I'm just pausing to try and process this bizarre demand. The man then said to me, "Hey stupid, did you hear what my wife was saying? Do you speak proper English?" Now it's at this point I've had enough, as I had put the pieces together as soon as they'd complained about road rage. I then recited their license plate number and said, "Is that your car with a gold 4-door crossover?" The man on the other line then said to me, "Are you the jerk driving that big stupid van?" But I responded by saying no, but the driver called in that you brake checked them right before you called in. This man then said to me, "We just tried to stop the driver because he was a danger to everybody on the road." But I just said to him, "Okay, sure. Well, we will see what the facts are once the vehicle's camera footage is reviewed. Our delivery vehicle is equipped with 360-degree recording. Let me pull that up real quick." This guy then started freaking out. He said to me, "That's a lie. There's no such thing." But unlucky for him, there is. So I pull the footage up from the fleet management software, which proceeds to show the gold car in question not just traveling in the blind spot, but are actually fully behind the vehicle. They then speed up to try and cut it off when the driver turned on the signal to change lanes. I say to him, "Sir, I can clearly see your wife in the driver's seat, and she's clearly speeding up after the driver signaled that they wanted to change lanes, and that's when she entered the vehicle's blind spot. Then, instead of slowing down when the vehicle started to change lanes, you kept trying to push up until they were forced onto the shoulder." The entitled woman tried to say, "Oh no, that's not what happened." But I said, "Don't interrupt me. I can clearly see you zip into the left lane, overtake the van, merge in front without signaling at an unsafe distance, and then slam on your brakes. So you know what? After reviewing this footage, I think it's a great idea to get the police involved." At this point, the entitled woman is sputtering and trying to come up with something to say. And that's when the man says, "Just hang up the phone." They then disconnected the call, and I had a huge laugh about it and then made an online police report. But hopefully in the future, their insurance premiums will never be the same ever again. Wow, I can't believe that someone actually tried to brake check one of your employees and then try to give you some kind of ultimatum that you either cater their stupid party or else they're going to sue you. That is crazy and absolutely ridiculous. The fact that anyone would think they would get away with that is also just mind-numbing. So good for you for having a level head throughout all of this, and good for you guys for having cameras, because if it wasn't for that, I'm sure these people probably would have gotten away with it. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not apologizing to my future mother-in-law after she called me out about fake drama during a meeting about my wedding? Here's what happened. Okay, so this all broke loose in late October when my fiance called during a weekend meeting saying that his parents and my parents are going to sit down and discuss the wedding. But I said, "Look, I'm so drained. Can it wait? It is set for October of 2026. Any other weekend would be great." But no, apparently it must be today. At the meeting, my future mother-in-law opened with an unexpected statement. She said to me, "Look, I love you, but I heard accusations at work that you claimed I'm not involved in the wedding. Do you remember saying anything like this?" Now, for a bit of context, she previously worked as the assistant director at my daycare, maintaining a close relationship with a coworker. Now, when I heard this, I was surprised and very confused. I clarified that I had not said such a thing. I don't typically engage in personal discussions at work. I did mention that a coworker who recently got married asked me about my wedding plans, and I had shared that my father is covering the cost due to tradition. My future mother-in-law then proposed that her brother be the wedding DJ, but that's when my father responded, noting that he prefers hiring a professional service for reliability, stating that he needed someone to chew out if something went wrong. Well, the meeting ended abruptly after this, and I left feeling upset and completely blindsided. My parents supported me, emphasizing that involving them in an issue between my future mother-in-law and me was inappropriate. It felt infantilizing. The following Monday, she suggested we stop visiting her home. I conveyed my disappointment in a written message, expressing my discomfort and need for space, especially during upcoming holidays. I also requested that future issues be addressed privately. Well, her reaction was intense. She labeled me immature and demanded an apology. And when my fiance defended me, this exacerbated the tensions. His brother acknowledged the challenging work environment that might fuel gossip, but maintained a balanced approach. Fast forward, and when we visited to drop my fiance's brother off at home on November 3rd, she approached me in the car, said she forgives me, and expressed her hope to move forward. But I just responded by saying, "Okay," and then my fiance said that he would speak to her later. He then said that she cried, went to her room and broke stuff, and that his brother took her on a walk to calm down. Now, at this point, I have maintained that I won't apologize for something I didn't do. Apologies should be genuine, not concessions to ease discomfort. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Oh man, I understand completely where the original poster is coming from because I am right there with you. If I didn't do anything, I'm not apologizing. Sorry, I don't care how awkward things are, that's not happening. And in this situation, you literally did nothing wrong. For starters, why is your mother-in-law having a meeting about your wedding? And then when we have the meeting, it's about gossip that could have been talked about in private. It's like, lady, what are you talking about right now? You're literally bringing up drama that's probably not even true, just in some weird, desperate attempt to like get information about the original poster and how they feel about you. Like, that's all this says to me. Like, there's probably not anybody gossiping about her at work. So for her to call you out in front of everybody and then demand an apology of some kind, like that's some crazy narcissistic behavior she's got going on. And if I was in your shoes, there is no way I would put up with that for a second. Like, this wedding is literally 2 years away and she's already causing problems with your wedding. So in my opinion, I would never apologize to this woman. If she wants to burst into tears and throw a fit and break stuff around her house, then go for it. But you did quite literally nothing wrong. And that is something that you should absolutely hold on to. Am I the jerk for telling my friends that I don't want to rent with them the night before they're supposed to sign a lease? Because right now I'm so scared of what's going to happen and I seriously don't know what to do. I'm a 19-year-old first-year college student who about a week ago agreed with a group of 5 friends that I would be interested in living with them next school year. Yesterday, we found a place that we really liked and talked about how we would find out about the lease by the end of the week. But today, they've decided they want to sign the lease as soon as possible or even by tonight because the landlord explained that the market is competitive and they don't want to lose this nice house. But reading through the lease has made me realize I don't want to do this financially. Even with the 5 of us, this would cost me about $750 a month or $9,000 to live there from August 2025 to July of 2026, not counting any of the utilities. And that is money that could be going towards classes. For reference, I am paying for school by myself and I just came back from a gap year of working. I do not want to take any loans and I have a lot of anxieties about going into debt after college because that's what happened to my mom and it still affects her to this day. My family also lives close enough to campus that I can just stay with them without having to pay anything. These friends are all from out of town, so they need to find a place to stay. I feel like a jerk now for saying that I don't think I can as soon as they're trying to sign a place because I definitely could with the money that I've saved, but I know I'll regret it in the future. I know I really don't want to, but I feel like I have to because they don't have anyone else and they need 5 people to make this work. Right now, I'm banking on the fact that my parents refuse to co-sign, but I technically wouldn't need them because my credit score is better than the both of them. Do I continue to lie and say that my parents are the reason I can't sign? Most, if not all of these places require us to have 2 co-signers because we are so young, but my parents' financial history are so poor, they don't think that they'd be approved as co-signers. I feel like a jerk because this is causing them a lot of anxiety, but it would be better for my own anxiety in the long run if I stayed at home and saved the money. I don't know how any of them are paying for school, so I feel awkward and kind of like a jerk for suddenly saying I couldn't afford it. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, based on the information we have, I have to say that yeah, I do think the original poster is kind of a jerk here. There's no way in the world you didn't know you had to pay some kind of rent. Like seriously, that should be obvious if you're going to be renting someplace. Now that's not to say that this really is kind of sketchy because the landlord is like, guys, you gotta sign it like right away. The market's really competitive. Please sign it right now. Like anytime someone's trying to like do that to you, in my opinion, that's like super sketchy and I almost immediately back out. But I think the principle of the matter still stands. If you know for a fact you can't live with these people and it would be cheaper for you to stay at home and commute to school, then why on earth would you agree to like live with your friends? You really should not make promises like that, especially if you don't know the whole situation. So yeah, I do kind of think you're the jerk here, but I don't think there's going to be a lot of blowback and hopefully there's not at all because this really does come down to you saying to your friends, hey, my situation has changed. And if they really are your friend, then they'll be okay with it and find somebody else. Am I the jerk for turning off my roommate's laundry at 5 o'clock in the morning after the noise quite literally kept me and my girlfriend from going to sleep? Because right now, my roommate is incredibly frustrated with me. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old male and I woke up to my girlfriend waking me up due to the laundry running super early on in the morning. For context, I share a house with 3 other college guys and we all have pretty late sleep schedules except for one roommate. And for the sake of the story, we'll call this roommate Edward. Our washer and dryer are right outside my bedroom door, so any noise that it makes is super loud. Now, I want to just try to push through it and go back to sleep, but my girlfriend can't sleep, and I want to prioritize her more than anything. So I decide to turn off the dryer so we can get some sleep. Now, she is mad at this point because it's not just the first or second time that this has happened, but maybe the 5th or 6th time just this semester semester alone. And she asked me to say something in the group chat, but I say that it's not worth it and everyone is probably asleep anyways, so we can just bring it up in the morning. I just want to sleep for now. But she brings up a good point that it's just disrespectful for someone to run something that loud right next to our room so early in the morning or even late at night. I contemplate sending the message, but then seconds later, Edward is blowing up our group chat, accusing me of turning his laundry off all the time and saying that's why his clothing is never dry. I told him it was literally the first time I've ever done this, but he didn't believe me and kept pushing that I'm suspicious and basically making it out like I'm messing with his laundry on purpose. I tried to explain that I was just trying to sleep, but he did not seem to care and was only focused on his wet clothing. He also doesn't have any work or career fairs or anything like that. In hindsight, maybe I should have told him right away that I'd turned it off, but I was groggy and I didn't think that it would be such a big deal. When I eventually decided to send the message, he had already blown up our group chat. Edward insisted that he didn't have other times to do his laundry and accused me of being disrespectful for messing with his stuff. But I suggested maybe we could set quiet hours for the laundry, and he said that it wasn't that serious. So am I the jerk for turning off his laundry, all because it was literally preventing me from going to sleep? What should I do? Okay, so in my opinion, I kind of think everybody sucks here. For starters, you really should not have turned off his laundry. I understand it's late at night, but this honestly was not the right move, and I think talking to him in some kind of way would have been way better than what you did. But also, this roommate is a complete jerk. He's literally trying to paint you as the bad guy first, before you can be like, hey, stop doing laundry in the middle of the night. And for him to be like, oh, it's not that serious. It's like, okay, it was serious enough for you to send a message to everybody and call me out and make me seem like the bad guy. Like seriously, quiet hours are a good thing. And I really think that would be a good solution to this problem. So yeah, I think everybody can probably work on some stuff in this scenario, because the way this went down, in my opinion, was a bit immature. Am I the jerk for refusing to make calls to social services on my girlfriend's behalf after she forgot to call them after we went on a month-long vacation? Because right now, after I refused, she called me a jerk and got really upset. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my partner has phone anxiety and executive dysfunction. A lot of the time, I need to be on top of things like bills, coordinating repairs, etc. And I have more or less accepted that. Without revealing where we live, she's been unemployed for nearly 2 years and has been on social service payments this entire time. Now, I've been and still am working full-time. She has a fair chunk of savings from when she did not work, and we currently live with my parents. So there aren't many household expenses at the moment, though obviously she doesn't get much income. Recently, we went on a long vacation, and before doing so, I told her that she should notify social services that she would be leaving the country, as they would have to pause her payments until she returns. 4 weeks into vacation, she gets an international call from them, which she completely missed, and a notification that she now owes them money. So obviously she didn't do that. Now, I kept my mouth shut since scolding her wouldn't really do anything, and instead just figured it would get sorted out when we returned. Well, now, 2 weeks after we're back, she comes in while I'm working at home, saying that she's too anxious to call them and get it sorted out. So I offer to be there on hold with her, since I still need to get my work done. But she says that I could call them on her behalf when I'm on my lunch break. But you know what? I refused, because these calls take a notoriously long time, and it would almost definitely eat into my work hours as well. She's now calling me selfish and a jerk for refusing, and when I asked after finishing my work if she had called, she hasn't answered me, and instead just keeps saying, well, why does it matter to you? So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all, because this is something she absolutely needs to take care of herself. I completely understand that she has some things going on where she can't get things done and she has a lot of anxiety about making phone calls, but seriously, this is not something that should be shipped off on your table to take care of. For reference, the original poster is 30 and the partner is 29 years old. And sure, she messed up with payments and all that other stuff, but that doesn't mean it can't be fixed like pretty much right away. And you know what? Even if you did try to call on her behalf, this is literally only going to go so far until they need to talk to her directly. It's not like you're the one that's going to be processing the payments or anything like that. She still has to be the one to talk to them to get all of this taken care of. So why not just do it instead of trying to like pass it off on your boyfriend? Like that would be super annoying, and I would personally find that very frustrating, because she's more than capable of doing this. It's also super disappointing that she's reacting in the way that she is. She's calling you the jerk and saying, well, why does it matter to you if I called or not? And it's like, seriously, you are not the villain here. You're not the reason she missed her payments, because when it gets down to it, this is quite literally her own fault. So no, you're not the jerk here, and honestly, I think the way your girlfriend is acting is completely unacceptable. My mom asked me for a live organ donation after she destroyed her liver from drinking way too much. And now this has brought up feelings that I've bottled up my entire life because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my mom has been an alcoholic my entire life. And a few years ago, she went into liver failure. She then asked me to get my blood tested to see if I could be a potential match for a live organ donation. After a childhood of some neglect and use for emotional support for her, this really sent me into a spiral. I saw counseling about it and I knew I wasn't going to do it, but being asked to do it is what really messed with me. Now, fast forward and a young man passed away and she got his liver before it got to the point of me going for more testing. She was sober for a year before and for some time after the surgery, but in the last year or so, I've suspected that she's begun drinking again. But I went home for a visit a couple of weeks ago and found out for sure. She was drinking at my aunt's house where we were visiting, trying to hide it until she got too drunk to care. She was her usual dark and confrontational self that she is when she drinks, and I was very uncomfortable. I asked her if she should be drinking, and she said yes. And she wasn't just drinking, she got wasted. I mean, she could barely walk. The next morning, she asked me if I was mad at her, and I said no. And then I told her that I'm just not sure that she should be drinking. She then said that if I'm going to be mad at her, then she's going to leave. She then wanted me to convince her to stay, but I just said nothing and then she left. Ever since then, I've talked to friends and to my therapist, and they all agreed that I need some space from her. So I then texted her saying that I needed some space, and she acted very immaturely, acting like she had no idea why I might do something like this, saying things like, "I hope you know how devastating this all is for me. If I gave her my liver, went through the risky surgery, took months off of work, changed my body forever for her, and she was still drinking again, I would never speak to her again. But instead, she got someone else's liver. So am I allowed to be angry at this moment? Because right now, I really don't know what to do." Oh man, this really is a tragic situation. Your mom clearly has a problem, and I don't think any amount of transplants are gonna change that. And it's like, how selfish can someone possibly be? The only reason her liver is failing is because she is an alcoholic. It's not because of something outside of her control. This literally is something that she caused on herself. So the fact that she would take advantage of the fact that some young man died so that she could have this liver is just completely uncalled for. Like, this really is disrespectful to this young man's memory. And also for the original poster, I think it's completely reasonable to be angry about this situation because you're watching your mom literally throw her life away. She's just drinking all the time and wasting away her one last opportunity at life. And I think the original poster is right. If they had taken time off work and gave a part of their liver over to their mom only for her to start drinking it away again, like, I would be so devastated and heartbroken. Like, I know for me, I would just walk away at that point. I would feel completely betrayed and be like, wow, I'm never helping you with anything ever again. Like, what does she actually expect? Is she just gonna keep drinking and ruin this liver as well? Like, why not try to make a change in your life and get some help? So truly, to the original poster, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this, and I'm so sorry that she asked you for your liver in the first place. Because based on what you described, this lady does not sound like a good mom in the slightest. An entitled mom shows up to my house demanding that I hand over my cat so that she can borrow him for her 6-year-old's birthday party. But despite the fact that I told her on Instagram that my cat isn't available for loan, she still decided to show up to my house, screaming that I was selfish for not handing over my cat. And I've honestly never dealt with anybody this insane in my life. Here's what happened. So to start things out, I'm an 18-year-old female, and I have a very fluffy and very adorable cat that I named Mochi. He's basically my little buddy, and he's got one of those Instagram accounts where I post funny antics, so a lot of people in my neighborhood know about him. And this includes one mom who is the entitled mom of this story, who has a 6-year-old daughter who's super into cats. Well, one day, this entitled mom messages me on Instagram, saying that her daughter is absolutely obsessed with Mochi, and asking if I could bring him to her daughter's birthday party the following weekend so that the kids could play with him. Well, I politely declined, explaining that Mochi doesn't do well in new environments and would likely hide or freak out around loud kids. Now, what was this entitled mom's response? She said to me, "Well, can you just loan him to us for the day?" And yes, you heard that right. She literally wanted me to just hand over my cat as if he were a library book or something like that. She promised that they would take good care of him and even offered to pay me $20 for the inconvenience. But I politely refused again, saying that Mochi isn't up for loan, and I don't think it would be safe or comfortable for him. This entitled mom immediately switched tactics. She then started calling me selfish and was accusing me of gatekeeping joy from her daughter. She rants about how it's just one day and that I owe it to the community because I flaunt Mochi's pictures online all the time. Well, at this point, I'm now getting irritated. I tell her that my cat isn't wasn't an accessory, and he is definitely not something that I owe to the neighborhood. Now, I assume that's the end of it, but unfortunately, things pop off the day of the party. I'm just sitting in my apartment when I hear a loud knock at my door. Standing right in front of me is the entitled mom and her daughter, with the girl holding up a sparkling cat carrier. The entitled mom smiles at me and says, "Oh, we came to pick up Mochi." And she's standing there acting as if we had agreed on this in some kind of way and just expected me to hand him over on demand. Well, I was completely stunned. I then said to her, "Look, I never agreed to this, and I'm definitely not giving up my cat." The entitled mom's smile drops instantly, and she launches into this loud, dramatic rant about how I'm ruining her daughter's special day and that I should not have shown off my cat if I didn't want to share. Her daughter then starts tearing up, and the entitled mom gives me this accusing look, as if I've broken her kid's heart on purpose. My neighbor down the hall actually poked her head out to see what was going on, which was more than enough for this entitled mom to grab her daughter and storm off. As she was leaving, she yelled at me and said, "I'll make sure that everybody knows how selfish you are." I later found out from mutual friends that she spread a story around the neighborhood that I baited her daughter with Mochi, only to then withhold him out of spite. Now, thankfully, nobody really believed her, but she still gives me the dirtiest looks anytime I pass her up. Now, when it comes to Mochi himself, he is completely oblivious and totally unbothered, living his best life as usual, which is exactly how I want him to be. Wow, this lady's crazy. She not only tried to take your cat, but she showed up to your house to do it. First of all, how does she know where you live? That is some creepy behavior right there. That is like really not okay. But it's also insane that she literally had this conversation on messaging the day before, calling you selfish and all this other stuff, and then shows up at your house like, "Okay, we're ready for Mochi." It's like, lady, what are you talking about? You can't do that to someone. You can't just walk up and be like, "We're taking your cat for the day and there's nothing you can do about it." So yeah, this lady's out of her mind if she thought this was okay. Because at the end of the day, the only person who ruined this kid's birthday party is the mom in this story, because the original poster quite literally didn't do anything wrong. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for laughing at my sister's relationship troubles after she cheated on her boyfriend? Because right now she is not talking to me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have a younger sister who we will call Emily, who was with her high school sweetheart by the name of Jake ever since she was 14 years old. For reference, Emily is now 25 years old. They dated all through high school and college, and honestly, they were the epitome of a perfect couple. Jake was always so thoughtful. He would surprise her with gifts, plan elaborate dates, and he literally lit up whenever she was around. They even talked about getting married at one point. Well, fast forward to a few months ago, and Emily cheated on Jake and broke up with him to be with her affair partner, who we will call Mark. Since then, she's been complaining to me about how Mark doesn't do any of the romantic things that Jake used to do. Apparently, he doesn't surprise her with gifts, and their dates are pretty lackluster compared to what she had with Jake. Last week, while I was on the phone with her, she started venting about how she feels unsatisfied in her new relationship. I don't know what came over me, but I just burst out laughing. I mean, she cheated on the guy who literally worshipped the ground she walked on, and now she's complaining about the new guy not measuring up? It just sounded so absurd to me. Emily then got really upset and told me that I was being insensitive. I tried to explain that I wasn't laughing at her pain, but it felt like poetic justice given how she treated Jake. Now she's barely talking to me, and I'm starting to feel bad for laughing at her. So am I the jerk for laughing at my sister, especially after she cheated on someone who treated her like a queen? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk. Emily cheated on Jake and didn't appreciate him at all. She had a fantastic relationship and is only now seeing that she completely screwed it all up. And you know what? If I was her older brother, I would say the exact same thing. I would be like, yeah, this is definitely poetic justice because you completely ruined everything. So no, you're not the jerk here, because what Emily did to Jake, in my opinion, is unacceptable. Me and my friends worked the system at my Catholic high school by quite literally absolving ourselves of any kind of consequences to our bad actions. And I'm honestly still amazed that we got away with it, all because of some loopholes that I thankfully discovered. Here's what happened. So I was raised in a devout Roman Catholic family who sent me and my siblings to Catholic-run schools from kindergarten all the way through high school. Now, for this to make sense, some basic understanding of Catholic religious doctrine is going to be needed. And just bear with me, as I will keep it brief. Catholics practice something called the Sacrament of Holy Confession. The belief is that if you confess your sins to a priest and truly repent for what you've done, the priest has the power to forgive your sins in the eyes of God. Most churches will have things called confessionals for this purpose, while some newer ones have small rooms with chairs, and the classic confessional confessional is like a small closet, with the priest sitting in the closet next to you, separated by a privacy screen. Usually, confession will be held after a morning daily mass service, and one or more priests will set up the confessional, and congregants will go in one by one and say their confession. Now, the bond of the confessional is absolutely sacrosanct within the church. Think of it like lawyer-client privilege. A priest is never ever supposed to share anything they learn in the confessional, nor act on any information that they learn. Priests have even been executed by their government for refusing to testify in a trial about something they hear in a confessional. If a priest is found to have broken this bond, he will be kicked out of the priesthood and could possibly even be excommunicated from the church. So basically, it is a very big deal. So much so that the policy for priests is that even if they later learn something through normal means that they originally first learned in the confessional, they are not allowed to act on that information, lest it even give the impression to the person who confessed it that the priest was somehow breaking the bond of confessional. And this last part is very crucial to the story. Well, sophomore year, my Catholic high school had its administration taken over by Salesian, a religious order of brothers and monks who are dedicated to educating children. Our new principal was a Salesian priest and started holding daily mass in our campus chapel every morning before classes, and he really encouraged people to go, but despite his efforts, it really never took off. It would just be the usual 1 to 2 super devout teachers and maybe one other super religious student or so. Then one Monday morning, right after homeroom, we hear the not uncommon announcement over the PA stating that the following students report to the principal's office immediately. Most of the time, this happened when those students were getting disciplined for some weekend shenanigans of some kind, and that is important to know because at a private school like this, we could be punished for that sort of thing. Well, we come to find out that someone threw a raging party. Someone's parents found out, they called the school, and now everyone involved was getting punished. And it was at this moment that I had an incredible epiphany. Next Monday morning, I was at morning mass bright and early, right at the front of the line to go into the confessional afterwards. I sat down with Father Jim, and I confessed to him in great detail all the trouble me and my friends had gotten up to over the weekend. And I told him everything, especially with where we went and who did what. The first time, I think he was kind of surprised. He gave me some acts of contrition to perform, and then said the absolution and sent me on my way. And I think the first few times he was actually pleased with himself that he's starting to really teach these kids. But I'm pretty sure that midway through the semester, he had caught on to what I was doing, and every now and then, he would make a sly reference or crack a smile. But he literally couldn't stop me. You see, by going and confessing everything we did over the weekend to our principal first thing Monday morning, I was putting all that information into the bonds of the confessional. Anything I told him there, Father would never be able to act on without risking serious consequences. If he got to his office and his first message was from my friend's mom explaining how she had caught all of us drinking and smoking in the alley behind her house, he could thank her for the information, but he couldn't punish us for it because I had already told him 20 minutes earlier all about it in the confessional. This tradition lasted all the way through senior year into graduation, and it served me and my friends incredibly well. Some other people must have figured things out as time went on, because by the time I graduated, Monday mass sessions were always well attended, and Father had to start doing them earlier to save time for all the confessions he was hearing before classes. Now, I don't know if it was me or the Father that was guilty of malicious compliance here, but it makes me wonder if we played him by going to confessional like he insisted, but only for our own selfish reasons. Or did he play us in some kind of like 4D chess move? I mean, after all, in just 2 years, he somehow managed to get dozens and dozens of high school students to regularly attend mass before class, as well as going to confession every single week. So maybe this was a win-win across the board, because as a result, me and my friends were able to get out of so many problems. That is a really funny way of working the system, because you quite literally put this guy between a rock and a hard place, especially when you consider the impact that all of this would have on that principal's career. Am I the jerk for telling my father-in-law that he is an awful father for the way that he treated my husband? Because after I said that, he got super defensive, and at this point, I'm not sure what to do, or if I made a mistake by talking to him in the first place. Here's what happened. So I knew my husband, who we will call Rowan, for a while before we even started dating. We grew up in the same town, and we were good friends through school, so I met a lot of his family when I was a kid. We lost contact for university, but then kind of talked again afterwards, and have evidently dated and gotten married. When I was a kid, I always kind of thought that Rowan's dad was weird. I obviously didn't have much context for it then, but this is something I always thought. His mom passed away when Rowan was young, and he has one older brother who's about 11 years older than him, but obviously the age gap meant that they weren't very close for much of his childhood. I know that when when Rowan was a teenager, he acted out, he drank a lot with his friends, got into fights, and didn't have good grades. I don't doubt that he was a difficult kid to raise, but I always thought that he was a good person, and I still do. When we started dating, he told me about the reasons behind him acting out, that his father was always drinking or out of the house, and that he constantly told Rowan that he wasn't good enough, that he was an awful son and all this other garbage, and was also accusing him of sneaking out, doing illegal substances, and he was constantly tearing his room apart looking for anything incriminating. Rowan's changed a lot now and is a genuinely down-to-earth guy that would help anyone that asked. Him and his father don't really speak anymore, and this was mainly due to a huge argument they had when Rowan was about 18 years old, and his dad said that his mom would be really disappointed in him if she was still alive today, and that he was never going to amount to anything. Rowan told me after that, he packed his bags, stayed with a friend for a while, and hasn't particularly spoken to his dad ever again. Well, Rowan and I went back to the hometown this weekend to see my parents, and me and my mom went out to a bar for ketchup. I immediately recognized his dad because he has a bunch of tattoos of random things on his neck, and that's something that I remember looking at as a kid, and he was standing next to me at the bar. We then made eye contact and he looked surprised and said something to the effect of, "I heard you and Rowan got married. I'm surprised. He always has been a skirt chaser. Thank God he doesn't speak to me anymore." I then repeated the sentiment that I was glad they didn't speak anymore, but added that it was because he'd been an awful father. Well, when I said that, he got really defensive, saying that Rowan had been difficult to raise, and when he said that, I just turned around and left to go and sit back down with my mom. At this point, I do kind of pity him, but I also wish that I had just not spoken to him and just left the situation. So am I the jerk for the way I handle this, and for calling this guy an awful father? What should I do? No, this guy really does sound like a piece of garbage. Like, how is that an introduction to like literally talking to someone who is married to your son? Like, if he's gonna give out that kind of garbage, then he had better be ready to receive it in return, because this guy's attitude, in my opinion, was completely inappropriate, and the fact that he got defensive after the terrible things that he said, in my opinion, shows exactly how awful this guy is. Today, I need to confess that the worst mistake I ever made was telling people that I won the lottery, because now everybody knows that I'm incredibly rich, but as a result, I had to cut literally everybody out of my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I won the lottery about 7 years ago. Between my annuity and profits made from investments, I get shy of $800,000 a year. I was absolutely stunned that I had won, but once I confirmed that I won, I started telling people. I thought that they would be happy for me, and they were happy for like a minute, but then they started asking me for money. It started with my friends and family, and then they told other people, and eventually I was literally getting 10 calls a day from people asking me for money. My favorite was the sister of my coworker saying she needed money for rent, and a friend asking me to buy them a $20,000 ring for a girl he had been dating only a few months, and she was even messing around with other guys on the side. Some people successfully used me, and I just eventually cut them off, and I still helped some people, but I had to cut them off too, because they were asking me for money only to give it to others or using the money for something different. It was all very traumatic. I even had a therapist try to rip me off by asking me for a cash tip after our sessions. Eventually, I was spending more money on people than I was on myself. It's ironic that I have more money than I need, yet I can't give it away because it brings nothing but problems. People make generosity not worth it. People want me to finance their best lives and have the arrangement be exclusively on their terms. And I will never understand why people can't accept one thing without trying to get more. So I just chalk it up that people in my life had no respect for me, because this is something that honestly I'm so sick of dealing with. Okay, I think I've read so many stories like this, and the biggest common theme is that if you win the lottery, literally don't tell anybody. Keep it a secret and keep a lid on it. Because for starters, let's be honest, none of us are gonna win anything like that. The odds are so low it's not even funny. But if it does happen, like, my God, do yourself a favor and just don't say anything to anybody, because then you're gonna end up like the original poster. They're getting 10 calls a day from people being like, "Hey, can I have some money?" And then pretty quick, all your family and friends are gonna become like these leeches in your life. Like, I can see that becoming really traumatic and just so awful, because I know when I have good news, I talk to my family and I tell them everything. So you would think that this would be something that would be like safe to talk about, but no, it's just gonna be used against you probably forever. So hopefully all of this settles in some kind of way, and hopefully you're able to like enjoy this money and use it for a good reason, and not just to like fund other people's lives or activities, because after a while, I can imagine that being a nightmare to deal with, especially if you have to cut people out of your life because they turned into a toxic mess. Am I the jerk for telling my mom that I won't be giving my son her last name? Because as a result, she's changed change the rules of the trust that we have in our family that would basically deny my kid any chance at any money that we have as a family, all because his last name would be different. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female who's expecting my first child with my partner of almost 8 years. Our son is due in less than 2 months. And for this story to make sense, it requires some backstory. My father isn't in the picture, so my immediate family is me, my mom, and my twin. About 3 years ago, my maternal grandmother passed away. I didn't have a relationship with her, and neither did my mom due to them always fighting. My grandma was quite wealthy, and when she passed away, she left me and my twin $500,000 total in a trust that we couldn't access until we were 25 years old. But on the other hand, she left my mother absolutely nothing. So my mother got a lawyer and got money released early from that trust with the condition that me and my twin gave her half of our inheritance each. Now, if we hadn't agreed to give her anything, she would have gotten absolutely nothing. Our mom then convinced us to put all the money into a trust of her own that would be for our family exclusively for education and housing, saying it would build stability for future generations. So I used this money to get a house that me and my partner currently live in. Since my mom found out I was pregnant, she's been very pushy that we use her last name, which is currently my last name. It's a traditional Scottish name with a capital letter in the middle and a lot of use of the letters M and N. I didn't like the last name as it's hard to pronounce just from reading it. I also fully intended to take my partner's last name in the future. 3 months ago, I told her that we wouldn't be using her last name and we would be using just my partner's last name instead. Well, when I said this set her off, calling me petty and ungrateful. Now, I apologized for upsetting her and I asked if we could have a conversation about it so I could understand why it upset her. I expressed that I love her and I don't want her to be upset with me, but she refused, saying it was my child and I could do what I wanted. Well, after that, I assumed that she had come to terms with it and just moved on. But fast forward to last week, and I get a text message from my mom saying the following: "By the way, I've made changes to the trust. My last name needs to be your child's surname if you want him to benefit from the trust. I have not worked this hard for the future just to support your partner's last name. That is just the way it is. Either use my last name or your kid gets nothing. I'd rather take the lot and just spend it." But when I saw this message, this really upset me. I asked her to give me some time and space to think about what she's done, but she then went off on me about how her hard work wouldn't be wasted, even though she herself said it would be set up for future generations just like my kid. She wouldn't even have any money to blackmail me in the first place if we didn't agree to give her half of my inheritance after her own mother screwed her over. So at this point, I've got no contact, but I'm starting to wonder if I'm the jerk for not just using her last name to keep her happy in order to make sure that my son gets access to that money. I don't want him to miss out just because his grandmother is an entitled piece of work. What should I do? Oh man, this one is awful. First of all, you did not do anything wrong, and no, you're not the jerk for picking your partner's last name. Your mom is insane, and the way she's treating you, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. This is some grade A manipulation that you absolutely do not deserve. Like, there were a lot of mistakes that kind of led us to this point where you gave her half your inheritance and then put all of it in a trust that she can access, because that was just like not a good move. Clearly your grandmother knew something that you didn't, because your mom got nothing from her mom, and I think we're starting to see why, because she is clearly a vindictive psychopath. Like, who in their right mind would act like this? Like, this is so unfair. So hopefully you can find some kind of resolution to this, especially when it comes to having this trust that was supposed to be for the family itself, because it literally just doesn't seem right that your mom can literally change the rules of this trust just to deny your kid specifically, all because you're not using the same last name, because that in and of itself is absolutely not fair. My brother stole the majority of my clothing and sold it online so that he could build up his online thrifting business. And now, after losing thousands of dollars worth of clothing, I'm now demanding that my brother pay me back for the clothing that he stole from me, because right now I am incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and when I moved back to my dad's house after losing my house last spring, I brought the majority of my clothing with me and stored it in my room. I left everything in my room, and I packed one bag to travel across the country for a work opportunity in the summer. When I came home at the beginning of this year, my bedroom had clearly been picked through, and my 26-year-old brother told me that he cleaned it for me. When I asked where all my clothing was, he told me that he'd stored them in the attic, and I had no reason not to trust him, although I couldn't understand why he would do that. I had immediately launched into another job that dominated my time, and I knew a lot of my stuff was still in a storage unit, so I really didn't think about it. I told myself it was either in the attic or still in the storage. Well, I cleaned out my storage storage unit and realized that I had actually brought most of my wardrobe back. At the same time, my brother moved out. I asked him about the stuff in the attic over text messaging, and he told me he thought more stuff was in there than there was, and then apologized to me. And at this point, I realized that he had lied to me. I knew that he had an online thrifting business spanning across multiple platforms. I couldn't find most of his accounts, but I found one, and he was actively selling several things of mine. And I could see in the history that he had been selling things quite soon after I left for my seasonal job in 2023. However, the history was only of items where the buyers had left reviews. I confronted him in person, and he doubled down and said he donated many of my items that I had previously left behind when I was in a stage where I was moving often for school or storing things in my bedroom. He claimed he had not touched anything since 2022 and had no idea where any of these newer items were. But it's incredibly obvious that he's lying. He never admitted to selling anything online and gave me his account info for websites he would sell stuff on, all much later in the evening. Now, at that point, I saw he had removed the items from eBay he was actively selling that were mine, so I'm sure that he did that for the other websites he sells on too. My dad refuses to get involved, and I'll get kicked out of his house if I file a police report. What I really want is to see a history of the listings to give me peace of mind and confirm everything that was stolen just so I can let it go. I also want my brother to repay me several thousands of dollars at least for the items. Some individual pieces were worth upwards of $100 each, and I think at least 100 items have been stolen. I don't really know how to further confront my brother since all he does is lie, and I don't feel like I have a hand to play since I can't say I'm gonna sue him. I'm completely shocked because my brother essentially built his business off of selling clothes that he stole from me, and he is now seeing no recourse from it. My trust is completely broken, and I feel gut punched. And even to this day, he still regularly visits the family house. What should I do? Oh man, there's no way on earth I would ever let this slide. If I was in your shoes, I would be telling him straight up, you can either give me my money back for the stuff you stole of mine, or else I'm gonna have to escalate this further. Like, this is straight up robbery. Your brother stole from you. There's no other way to look at this, and the fact that your dad's like, oh, if you do that, you're gonna be out on your own. And it's like, wait a second, do you really not care that your son robbed your daughter? Like, that is insane in my opinion. How can any father in their right mind be okay with that? So I really hope you somehow get your money back for this, because the way your brother's acting, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable, and this is something he absolutely should be paying for. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for betraying my brother by outing him and ruining his relationship by exposing the fact that he's been cheating the entire time? Because right now there's a lot of blowback from my brother and my father, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so basically I found out that my brother, who we will call Aaron, was cheating on his girlfriend, who we will call Katie. Now, I will be honest and say at the time I didn't really care too much, as he never holds down a relationship for long, and I wasn't willing to damage our relationship for a stranger I had not even met yet. But much to my surprise, eventually he introduced her to the family, and it seemed like he was taking this relationship seriously. Now, I thought the cheating had stopped too, but it definitely had not. Then my girlfriend became very friendly with Katie, and the two of them became best friends. That meant that she was hanging around our place all the time, and I got to know her. So she wasn't a stranger anymore. She is a cute, bubbly girl that's like made of sunshine or something like that. Anyways, my conscience ripped me a new one, especially since I also became friends with Katie. Long story short, I confronted my brother, and get this, he didn't want to stop cheating. I then consulted my queen, and she almost banished me for not speaking up sooner. So we decided to speak to Katie together. She then broke up with Aaron and moved to our place for now. Well, naturally, the fallout is incredibly heavy. My brother is beyond angry with me, as is my father. My mother is staying neutral to keep the peace, but my father especially is mad that I betrayed my brother and that I didn't put blood first. Now trust me, there's an entire rant about loyalty and family above all of this, but overall, am I the jerk for betraying my brother supposedly and choosing Katie over him? What should I do? Okay, for starters, no, you're definitely not the jerk. Like, this situation is super messed up, and the fact that your brother was okay with cheating on her and ruining this perfectly good woman, in my opinion, is not fair for her in the slightest. Like, she really did deserve the right to know. But for me, the biggest red flag here is not only that your brother is angry with you, but also your father is mad at you. And seriously, think about it for a second. He's mad at you for exposing the cheating instead of his other son who was doing the cheating. Like, how is that fair? Like, what is going on? Is your dad cheating on your mom or something like that? Like, if I had a family member who I knew was cheating on their significant other and was like actively going behind their back, I would throw them to the wolves until they redeemed redeem themselves. Like, that is unacceptable. And this is not a situation where you're supposed to put blood first, because I seriously think that is such a stupid cop-out. So no, you are not the jerk in this scenario, and if your dad and Aaron honestly have a problem with you exposing Aaron's cheating, then trust me, they're the ones with a problem and not you. My manager is constantly on my case about how I'm doing my job, while also saying that he's gonna fire me at the drop of a hat. So after dealing with this for so long, as well as putting up with his and the owner's garbage, I decided to get revenge by quitting my job literally in the middle of rush hour, putting him in a weird spot and forcing him to finally do his job. Here's what happened. Okay, so the backstory is crazy here and the story only gets wilder. There's this small restaurant that does have a chain, but is being co-owned by two new investors who are quite young. It all started about a month ago when I was cut early by the owner of the restaurant, only for this manager to become irate at me for leaving early. This escalated without my knowledge behind my back until apparently a gasket blew and this guy accused me of stealing one of his tables as a server and said that he was going to fire me. That was when I became aware of the situation, and the owner obviously didn't fire me because I'm a good worker. Now, I politely point out to the owner that I no longer feel comfortable working under this manager as I feel a hostile work environment forming. Well, lo and behold, he begins to start inflating my guest counts and nitpicking me on everything he could possibly find wrong about my work. Well, easy enough. I tell the boss under no circumstances am I going to show up if I am scheduled underneath this manager. I then begin to take on more expo shifts because of said manager. I also begin to only work serving shifts on Sunday and Monday because those are the days this manager gets off. So anyways, I just quietly sit back and begin to note down a few things. For starters, I requested not only from the owners, meaning both of them, but also the lead scheduling manager to not schedule me with that manager. And secondly, I'm taking note of how this manager treats others so I can see if there's any kind of claim that he's treating me differently on purpose. Now, you can probably guess who was scheduled with that manager, but what you would have not guessed is that this occurred 2 weeks ago, and I decide to take that shift on the chin like a champ. But I decide to skip my next shift scheduled with him, and I politely notify the owners of this as well. And I really thought that there was no way that this manager could bother me as a food runner and a busser, but apparently I was completely wrong, which leads me to what happened today. Some of my friends from a couple of hours away decided to head into town not only to see me, but others who coincidentally moved into town. I asked my other manager who I work under if it would be alright to take that table, as they are my friends even though I was a food runner. They said sure, and the manager of the hour decides that when my friends arrive, he's going to attempt to block me from serving them. He attempts to tell me that it is the policy of the restaurant to not have people switching jobs mid-shift. But when he said this, I just laughed in his face, as the owners have personally asked me to switch from food runner to server more than one time before. I have even switched to kitchen duties from serving at one point. Anyways, I stopped myself from saying anything stupid, and I had to compose myself for a minute. I then proceeded to tell him to his face that I quit right in the middle of the rush hour, and I proceeded to sit at the table with my friends and begin to order beers with them. I then made sure to tip my friend who served us extra well for having to deal with my nightmare that night, because honestly, I don't regret what I did, and I really am so glad I don't have to deal with them any longer. Yeah, that job sounds like a nightmare, but honestly, you did this in the best way possible. You not only showed him right to his face that no, you cannot boss me around, but you also literally quit right in the middle of rush hour. That is like the perfect revenge because it makes him actually do his job for once. So good for you for getting out of this job, because these people sound awful to work for. Am I the jerk for refusing to spend all of my savings just to bail my sibling out of all the debt that they have? Because right now I'm being guilt-tripped hard by my family, saying that family is more important than money and that I'm the responsible one, so I should be the one to bail them out. So right now I feel very frustrated and I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my sibling recently approached me asking for help with their financial situation. Apparently, they've racked up a ton of debt over the past few years from emergency purchases and lifestyle choices. They've been struggling to manage it, and now it's at a breaking point where creditors are contacting them non-stop. Now, I've been careful with my money, working hard and saving for years to build up a bit of a safety net for myself. I'm not rolling in cash, but I've got enough set aside to feel secure. When my sibling asked me to help, they were not looking for a small loan. They wanted me to clear out nearly all my savings to cover their debts. They argued that family should help each other out and implied I was being selfish for not wanting to help them out of this mess. I tried suggesting other options, like talking to a financial advisor or consolidating their debt, but they just brushed those off, saying they would take too long and that I was their only real option. They even got my parents involved, who are now pressuring me, saying that family is more important than money and that I should do this because I'm the responsible one. Now, it's important to know that I do feel for my sibling, and I understand they're in a tough spot, but it doesn't feel fair to me to sacrifice everything I've worked for, especially when I had nothing to do with their financial choices. Now, I'm being called heartless and cold by my family, and I'm starting to wonder if I'm being selfish for holding onto my savings. So am I the jerk here for not wanting to bail my sibling out? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk here. Anyone trying to be like, oh, come on, you're the responsible one. Family's more important than money. If they really did believe that, then they would give up their money instead of trying to force you to give their money up. It's always convenient to me that people complaining that you're not following through on family obligations are also the same people not chipping in a single dime to help them out. Why should you have to give up all of your money all because your sibling was irresponsible? Like, none of this is your fault that they're in this situation. And sure, you do feel for them, but that doesn't mean you're obligated to empty your entire savings just to help them out. That seems way over the top, and there's no way I would ever agree to that. So no, you're not the jerk here because what's being asked of you is completely insane, since this problem is quite literally not your fault. Am I the jerk for refusing to follow my roommate's shower curfew routine simply because she's annoyed at how long I take in the shower? Because right now I'm really frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I share a bathroom with my college roommate. This is our second year living together and we have become friends. Today I was planning to shower before going out when my roommate went into the bathroom to get ready. She typically spends about an hour in there doing her hair and makeup, and I asked if she could do her makeup in her room instead since I needed to take a shower. Well, she straight up refused, saying that she had already claimed the space and her stuff was already set up. After a brief argument where I pointed out she could do makeup anywhere while I can take a shower in the bathroom, I gave up and said that I wouldn't shower, but said that we should discuss it for the future. She then said that if we're going to talk about that, we needed to talk about the times of day that I shower. She said that I'm home all day, and I should shower earlier before she's likely to get home. For reference, I do take one less class, I study at home, and I work in the mornings, while she works evenings or studies at the library. She says she often comes home when I happen to be showering, when I could have done it hours before, and then she has to wait 30 minutes on me. Then she said she thinks I intentionally time my shower use just to inconvenience her. But here's the reality of this situation. She doesn't have a consistent schedule, so I don't actually know when she's coming home. I also shower late because I like to finish my work, walk my dog one last time before bed, and shower afterwards. Also, sometimes I want to point out that when she showers before me, I regularly have to wait an hour without any kind of complaint, meaning that she's in the shower for 45 minutes and then 20 minutes for her skincare and teeth. She claims I time my bathroom use deliberately, citing one time when I texted her asking when she would be home. She replied that she was on the way, which I had read when I was getting in the shower. So in no way did I intend for that to happen. It just kind of did. And I wasn't going to jump out because she was almost home. She's also upset that maybe 6 times in 2 years, I've knocked on the door to quickly use the toilet during her hour-long bathroom sessions. And this morning proved my point when I had a sudden and very urgent need to use the bathroom right in the middle of her post-shower skin routine. Instead of letting me in, she took an extra 5 minutes and accused me of holding it until she's in the bathroom. She's completely unwilling to budge and insists I need to change the time of day when I shower so that she's not having to wait. When I mentioned that my less than 30-minute showers are much shorter to wait on than her hour-long routines, she snapped at me and said, well, we're not putting time limits on the shower. It's also important to note that my average shower times are more like 15 to 20 minutes, and we're talking like when I walk in the bathroom and when I walk back out. So this includes me brushing my teeth. So 30 minutes is a bit of an overestimation on days that I'm doing an everything shower. The point was to compare her shower length time to mine, which is much shorter in comparison. I also live in an on-campus upperclassman dorm. Housing basically will not do room switches unless your life is somehow in danger, so I think I'm completely out of luck there. She isn't living with us next year though, so I'll just have to see if I can try to resolve everything so we can somehow get through this year, even though honestly I'm not very optimistic. So truly, how should I handle this situation? Am I the jerk for asking her to do her stuff elsewhere so I can take a shower and use the bathroom? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk, and honestly, your roommate sounds like a nightmare. If I had a roommate who was like, dude, I need to use the bathroom right now, I would happily step out and be like, sure, take care of business, man, it's all good. So the fact that your friend is like, no, you're gonna have to wait, and then intentionally takes an extra 5 minutes, that in my opinion is insane. And this really is a situation where she wants a double standard. She wants you to follow all of her rules, while also not wanting to follow the rules that she's setting up for you. It's like, wait a second, this goes both ways. If you have to follow some stupid rule set, then she does as well. So no, you're not the jerk here. Your roommate is clearly in the wrong, and the fact that she doesn't see that says way more about her than it ever will about you. An entitled customer demands that I remake his order, despite the fact that I did did it exactly the way he described it. And after this interaction, I honestly can't wait to no longer work here. Here's what happened. Thank God I'm graduating college in the summer because this place is exhausting after almost 3 years of working here. This will definitely be both my first and last job in a restaurant, even if I love working expo the most. So this happened a couple of nights ago while I was working a serving shift. I got this table and the host warned me that the man is a total condescending jerk. Everybody hates him, and I was confused, since some small interactions I've had with him in the past were overall pretty pleasant. I get his drinks and then we ended up talking for a good 10 minutes. And it turned out that he has Asperger's like me along with his son, so we took time talking about our experiences and struggles, like how when I can tell someone is being awful towards me and my coworkers tell me I'm probably wrong, and I just didn't read the tone right because I'm autistic. Anyways, after we finished chatting, I got his food order and here's what happened. He said to me, "Could I get the grilled wings with all drums and then this flavor?" But I explained to him that our grilled wings can only be mixed, so we can't do all drums or all flats with them. He basically says, "That's all right, sign me up." So I said to him, "Okay, got it. And it's all right that the grilled can only be mixed?" And he said to me that this was fine. Now this will be important later on. I take his order and I go put in the grilled wings. And when the wings are ready, I bring them out to him and he says they look great and we talk for a little bit more. I go to take care of some tables I got and eventually come back to check on him. And this is where things really took a turn for the worse. He looks at me and says, "You got my entire order wrong. I didn't order it like this. I didn't want grilled. I wanted all drums." I said to him, "Oh, I thought you said you were fine with the grilled and them only being mixed." He said to me, "No, I said it was fine and to sign me up. For regular wings and all drums, that is. And I wanted the sauce on the side. I can't eat them like this." I started saying that I was sorry, and he actually said to me, "You should be. Take it back and remake it. This time the regular wings, all drums with a sauce on the side." So I take the wings and I get them remade, and I was a frazzled and confused mess. Let me tell you, it was like in the span of 20 minutes, I experienced the time I just got a boyfriend and he seemed great and chill, only to turn around after one day and be a total overbearing creep. Like seriously, this was some awful whiplash. Anyways, I got them remade and I brought them over to him. He said they were much better, and then he said to me, "Do you know how to meditate?" I said to him yes, and he said to me, "You should try doing it more. It's very good for your mind and it helps you slow down, helps you listen better. Learn to listen and listen to learn. If you did it more, you'd learn how to slow down and listen better, and you would have heard me and gotten my order right the first time." And yes, you heard that correctly. He said it like he was trying to be helpful in some kind of way. I was sent away, and then when he finally checked out, he gave me a tip over 25%, which honestly is just so confusing. But honestly, I hope I don't deal with this guy ever again, because this weirdo was completely exhausting. Yeah, that guy's a piece of garbage, and the second he told me I need to meditate more and then maybe I would have heard his order would be the moment I say, "Okay, I'm not helping you anymore." Like that's unacceptable and that is so rude. So truly, I hope you do find a better job than this, because this definitely does not sound like a fun experience. Am I the jerk for not attending my sister's wedding after she purposefully disinvited my husband? Because after I told her I'm not showing up, she tried to claim that I was too attached to my husband and that I was being selfish and not supporting her. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a sister who we will call Megan, who is getting married very soon. Our relationship has had its ups and downs, but I've always been excited for her big day. Recently though, things took a turn that have left me feeling hurt and very frustrated. Megan recently called to tell me that she decided to disinvite my husband, who we will call Tom, because she feels that he wouldn't fit in with her wedding vibe. She described him as too laid back and said that she didn't want him to bring the mood down. Now, when she said this, I was shocked, and I tried to understand her reasoning. Tom is quiet, but he's also very friendly, and he has always been supportive of my family. When I pushed back, Megan insisted that it was her wedding and she wanted it to be a certain way. Well, I reminded her of all the family events where Tom has been a great guest and has never caused any issues. Instead of considering my feelings, she accused me of being defensive and too attached to him. When I said I wouldn't be attending the wedding if Tom wasn't invited, she became really upset and called me selfish for not wanting to support her on her special day. Our parents have sided with her, saying I should just go and leave Tom behind. But right now, I'm feeling torn between family loyalty and standing by my husband. So am I the jerk for refusing to attend my sister's wedding? Because honestly, I'm so frustrated and I really don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk. This is so crazy. Is Megan really accusing you of being too attached to your husband? What kind of stupid argument is that? That's the dumbest thing I think I've ever heard. That really doesn't make any sense. Speaking of not making sense, Megan is literally uninviting your husband because he's too laid back. And it's like, seriously, what on earth does that even mean? Too laid back? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Wouldn't you want someone like that at your wedding? I'm sure it's already going to be stressful enough. Like, Tom's not going to bring down the mood. He's going to can be sitting there just enjoying himself and probably staying quiet. So no, you're definitely not the jerk for choosing your husband, because the way your sister's acting is completely crazy. And the fact that she would call you selfish and be like, wow, you're not going to support me, all after not inviting your husband, in my opinion is unacceptable and absolutely should be shut down. My entitled toxic landlord tries to nickel and dime me and my roommates for everything that we supposedly broke, claiming that he has to now buy brand new stuff as we ruined everything in his apartment that we were renting. So we decided to get some revenge by quite literally dragging all the items he claimed were broken down to the local park where all the homeless people live and giving those items to them. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at my landlord in my life. Here's what happened. Years ago, I moved into a new apartment while studying abroad, and the landlord was, well, let's just say he was a real shark. The guy had a dozen properties rented out to students and a reputation for squeezing every last penny out of his tenants. By coincidence, I ended up dating a fellow student who happened to rent from him the next building over and who moved out 6 months in, so I had advance warning of what to expect on move-out day. When she moved out, she had broken a single plate and lost a fork, so somehow got charged for an entire new matching set of plates and cutlery. She even replaced the plate and fork herself, but that wasn't good enough for Mr. Shark Lord. No, he insisted on billing her for a full brand new set. And of course, she learned later on from her ex-flatmate that he only replaced the missing items and then pocketed the difference. I mean, just imagine the profit accumulating over the years over a dozen apartments, when for every student you charge the price of a new set, but actually only buy one replacement set for one fork here and one glass there, pocketing the difference the entire time. Sure, it's not shady, but it is utterly petty. Now, when myself and my best friend had moved in, the landlord proudly tells us about the brand new mattresses in our rooms. Well, a year later, when my friend was moving out, we did a massive deep clean, left the place absolutely sparkling clean, and made sure to replace anything that was missing. But of course, during the inspection, the landlord found fabricated issues, and surprise, surprise, he deducted and withheld my friend's entire deposit, mostly on the basis of the mattress being slightly stained and needing replacement. And my friend was understandably fuming. But right then, we had a thought. If he was charging us for a new mattress, then my friend had technically just paid for this one, so technically it was his. And equally technically, it just wouldn't be considerate to leave personal belongings cluttering up the landlord's apartment after we moved out, now would it? I mean, moving out does mean moving out, right? He couldn't take the mattress on the plane, obviously, so we hauled it down to a nearby park where some local homeless people hung out, and we decided to donate it right then and there. Fast forward a few days, and I'm still in the apartment and about to move out shortly, with my friends already gone, and I hear the landlord arrive to show the room to a new tenant. I hear the bedroom door open, and then this guy goes into a rage. He starts to scream, "Where is the mattress? You mean I have to buy a brand new one?" And when he started screaming, I almost lost it right then and there. But I held my composure and I played dumb, listening to him fume about all that's happening in front of him. And you know what? A few days later, when it was my turn to leave, I knew that I was getting nothing back from my deposit. So I too was going to take all of my personal belongings with me. So I took everything that I had paid for. I took the mattresses, the plates, the cutlery, the glasses, and even the light bulbs. And trust me when I say this, the friendly neighborhood hobos made out like absolute kings. Wow, that landlord is a piece of garbage. This guy literally is trying to be like, oh yeah, you owe me a new mattress, when in reality, he already gave you a mattress that looked like garbage. Because sure, as a new tenant and as a college kid, your first instinct isn't going to be to take pictures of everything, just in case this landlord is going to try and like screw you out of your money. So in my opinion, I love the fact that you guys did this, because this guy absolutely had it coming. Because if this guy's going to try and like nickel and dime everybody who comes in and out of his apartments, then he absolutely deserves to deal with the consequences. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to share my bed with my 14-year-old brother when my family visits me? Because right now, I'm being called difficult for not wanting this to happen, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 22-year-old female, and I moved recently to another country, and I share an apartment with my dad. It is a 2-bedroom, and I took the master bedroom because my dad isn't there as often as I am, and I have more things than him that wouldn't fit in his room. And you know what? He's fine with it, because he lives there only 1/4 of the time, and I live there full time. Also, I can't move out because they won't allow it and see it as me abandoning him. My mom and little brother visit us often, and they visited for a month recently, and my little brother insisted on taking my room. My mom slept with my dad, and I was asked to share a bed with my brother. Now, I didn't want to, obviously, Obviously, what kind of 22-year-old wants to share a bed with her 14-year-old brother for a month? He moves a lot in his sleep, and I can't sleep peacefully. I slept on the sofa for the entire month, and I got called difficult and selfish the entire time. Now, my family wants to visit again in a few months, and obviously, I asked about the sleeping arrangements, and I even got called annoying for even asking. I asked if my mom and I could share my bed, and my brother sleep in my dad's room with him. Well, my brother refused to do so. He wants to sleep in my room because it's bigger, which I don't understand, and it upsets me that my mother will force me to allow it. I don't have my own choice, even though I live far from home. They are coming for only a week, but I still don't want to sleep in the same bed with my brother. I don't understand why he can't sleep with my dad. I mean, my dad would also just move to my room. I also will be working, taking classes, going to the gym when they're there, so it's all just going to be so difficult for me. I struggled a lot the month they were there because I barely got any sleep. I feel like other parents would have boundaries and have younger siblings respect their older siblings' space. And I think the only way they would respect my space is if I got married. I mean, everybody in my family gangs up on me and makes it out as if I'm the problem, so I'm genuinely confused. Now, I did suggest that my brothers sleep on the couch, but they wouldn't even consider it and got mad at me for even suggesting it. If I downsized to a smaller room, my brother would still want to sleep in the master bedroom because he likes that bed, and my parents wouldn't get to sleep together either way. It's also important to note that culture is a big aspect of all of this. I'm South Asian, and it's nothing like Western culture. I can't simply move out. I'm not sure how to insist he takes the couch either. My mom keeps talking about how I've changed and how I don't like to share beds with them anymore, and I genuinely think that she will just tell him to get on my bed, and I can't just shove him off because he's heavy. My 30-year-old sister doesn't see an issue with this either, and they all think I'm strange for finding it weird. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. I totally understand there's a cultural difference going on here, but seriously, that does sound incredibly strange. Even from a sibling perspective. Like, you know for a fact your brother's gonna be annoying, and he's going to disrupt your sleep the entire time. So even from that angle, I wouldn't want him to sleep in my bed either. I don't know why he can't just get an air mattress, throw it on the ground, and be like, there you go, sleep on that. Like, that really would solve everybody's problem, and then nobody has to have their personal space like invaded constantly. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because the way your family's acting, in my opinion, is incredibly annoying. Am I the jerk for not allowing my brother to move in with me and my mom after I just bought a new house, knowing that he would absolutely trash the place? Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, I'm a 25-year-old female, and my mom and my brother, who's 30 years old, all live together in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the city. My mom and I each take a room, and my brother lives in the common space. I moved in with my mom in 2018 since she lived less than a mile down the road from the college that I was attending. And in 2019, my mom forced my brother to move in after an accident. And just as a bit of reference, my brother and one of his friends were out drinking one night, and on the drive home, they crashed headfirst into another vehicle. The girl in the other car was fine, other than a head injury, and my brother's friend was also fine, other than a concussion and a sprained wrist. But my brother, on the other hand, was ejected from the vehicle because his stupid idiot self didn't put a seatbelt on, and he was severely injured. He had a broken collarbone, a nasty upper arm gash that ended up getting infected, a broken femur, a dislocated hip, and a fractured pelvis. After a month of recovery and a year of physical therapy, the doctor gave him the all clear, and thankfully he has full mobility. Anyways, during COVID, my mom lost her good paying job, so I got a part-time position at a bar near our home to help cover the cost. Since classes had been moved online, I was taking longer to finish my degree, but I am happy to say that back in May, I graduated and I got a great job as a traveling nurse. My brother, on the other hand, has done absolutely nothing to help either of us out, and even seems to be making things worse. Before the accident, he was attending university and he had a job, but since he's moved in, all he's ever done is sit around and play video games. He sleeps all day and is up all night. He never cleans up after himself, and he is a slob in general. I know he didn't live like this before, so I'm not sure what caused the change in him. I will come home after days away, and the house is absolutely trashed. There will be dishes piled in the sink, trash overflowing, as well as dirt trashed throughout the apartment. When I bring it up, he always says he's too tired or he forgot. My mom is starting to get old, and honestly shouldn't have to clean up after my adult brother. So I'll spend the next few days cleaning up, but once I leave and come back, it's just dirty again. After a lot of overtime and saving, I have a decent amount for down payment on a house, and last month I signed the papers for a nice 4-bedroom, 2-bath house with a small 2-car garage, and it all sits on a decent 3 acres of land. I am proud to finally have a place to call my own. I told my mom she is more than welcome to come live with me since I know she won't be able to afford the apartment on her own, but my brother can't can't move in with her because I want my new house to stay nice. And I know he would just trash it like he did the apartment. And now my mom and my brother are calling me a jerk for not letting him move in with us, with my extended family chiming in with the exact same thought, but honestly, I feel like I'm not at fault here. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. This is your house and you really can decide what you do and don't want in your house. And it sounds like your brother would be an awful roommate. Like he clearly doesn't care about the space he's living in. And sure, he went through an accident and he had a lot of rehab, but it's the fact that he's unwilling to do anything around the house and he's not willing to like clean up after himself. That in my opinion is completely unacceptable. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting him around because honestly, he sounds like a very messy roommate. Would I be the jerk if I wrote an anonymous Google review on my boss for parking illegally in a handicap spot at my job? Because honestly, as someone who needs that spot, I'm incredibly frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female and I have a physical disability and I also have a handicap parking pass. My work parking lot is medium-sized and there's only 2 designated handicap spots with only one right next to the entrance. It's especially helpful during the winter when the walk to the building is icy and harder for me to manage with my condition. Well, my boss and his wife constantly parks in the handicap spots despite not having a pass or any reason to need it. I haven't directly confronted them, partly because they're my boss and partly because they're generally not very approachable. However, when our admin made a comment about what if someone needs it, he said to us, "Well, I don't care, I own the lot." I've also mentioned to coworkers how frustrating it is, and they agree, but none of us feel like we can do much. And that's when I had a thought. I'm considering leaving an anonymous Google review for our workplace, mentioning that the owner parks in the handicap spot illegally. I wouldn't call them out by name, but I'd make it clear that it's an issue at our location. My hope is that the company or my boss would see it and start rethinking their parking habits. But part of me feels guilty, and I worry it might create tension or even get me in trouble if they somehow find out that it was me. So would I be the jerk if I post this review instead of speaking up directly? Or should I just suck it up and try to find another way? What should I do? Okay, first of all, you wouldn't be the jerk if you left the review, but trust me, there are better ways to get it through their head that they can't do this. Because I know if I was in this situation, and I can only speak for what I would do, I absolutely would take pictures and call the police. I would tell them straight up, listen, I have evidence that someone is parking illegally in the handicap parking spot. And then I would literally just let nature take its course. And I would even call the non-emergency line if I was worried that maybe this would get me in trouble. Even though I'm pretty sure it would be very illegal for them to try and like fire you over something like this, because these people honestly shouldn't be doing this in the first place. So no, you wouldn't be the jerk for leaving a bad review, but in my opinion, I think that you would be well within your right to escalate this further if you truly wanted to. Am I the jerk for losing my composure at a family gathering after my brother intentionally hides my belongings and then taunts me by saying that no one will believe me if I do happen to say anything? Because right now I'm still incredibly angry and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I ended up calling my brother out in front of our family at a recent gathering. My bag was sitting on a table at the entrance of where we were, and this bag contains my keys, my phone, my kids' medicine, and a lot of other stuff. I literally watched my brother pick up my bag and take it into another room. I soon made my way to where he was, and I asked him to hand it over, stating that I observed him picking it up and walk away with it. With a smile on his face, he suggested that I go tattle on him, saying to me, "No one will believe you. I always win. Go ahead, see what happens," while claiming that he doesn't have it. So I made my way to the room where his wife was, stating what had just happened, and then I asked her for her help. She then went and talked to him, and then returned to tell me that he didn't have it, and for me to just leave him alone. He then sticks his head around the corner and smirks, mouthing the words, "I told you so." I then gathered my partner and our kid, and I said that we needed to leave. I didn't swear or name call, but I was not cool, calm, or collected in my haste. And this isn't the first time something like this has happened where I've been on the receiving end of his nonsense. I was then reprimanded by a handful of people for being over the top and that my behavior was concerning. Eventually though, he disclosed where he hid my bag and then we left immediately. Now I am usually happy-go-lucky and I have a pretty mild disposition, but I will never understand blaming a victim for reacting with big emotions to something they shouldn't have to endure in the first place. Now, if this isn't the appropriate perspective and there is a better position to take, I would like to understand why and what I could do differently when involved with these situations. So am I the jerk in this situation for losing my composure? What should I do? Man, it's like your brother wants to get in a fight. If that was me, I would absolutely fight fire with fire. First of all, no, you're not the jerk, but also the fact that your brother acted like that is absolutely insane. For reference, the brother is 30 years old old. There's no excuse to be acting that way, and for him to act like a toddler and be like, oh, go ahead and tattle, no one's gonna believe you. It's like, what is wrong with you? You can't just hide someone's stuff like that. I can understand harmless pranks, but this is very much malicious. He meant to do this, and he wanted to do this at your expense. So you know what? If he wants to hide your belongings, then congratulations, he's not gonna have a car, a phone, or anything. Because if I was in your shoes, I would take that stuff and be like, okay, I guess we're trading. And then I would literally walk out the door. Like, there's no way I'm gonna put up with that. And the fact that this is ongoing and nobody is taking any kind of like serious stance on this shows how dismissive your family really is towards your brother. And it proves your point that this is very much targeted towards you. Like, this guy sounds like a nightmare, and my God, I would never want to put up with this. Especially coming from family members, because this is so toxic, and you absolutely do not deserve to be treated like this. Am I the jerk for making my roommate's life allegedly harder by upholding our previous agreement with her living with me? Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female, and I have a problematic relationship with my friend and roommate who we will call Lex. And at this point, I'm seriously unsure if I'm in the right here or not. For a bit of background, I suck at housekeeping, and it's not my priority to have a neat and tidy home. I mean, it honestly never was. I make decent money in a field that I love, and I fought like crazy to get there. And I'd rather spend that money for someone doing the cleaning for me so I can focus on other stuff. I was considering hiring a cleaner on a regular basis, but my friend who was actually a cleaner was looking to relocate, so she moved in with me and we made an arrangement. I'll cover all household bills, including food, etc., and she'll take care of the common areas. It was a very small apartment with no kids, so there's honestly not much work to do. So she would still pay half the rent if she could. She more often than not couldn't, for complex reasons that are not important here, but she has had trouble keeping a steady job, so her income is low and very unsteady, meaning that about half the time I pay the rent myself and paid for her expenses too, even though the expenses were not part of the agreement. Fast forward a year, and while hesitant at first, she got used to me backing her up financially, and this was a bit too much, I would say, but it's my bad for not setting boundaries. I then got fed up with how irresponsibly she was spending my money and decided to stick to the agreement more strictly, meaning that I would not give her any more spending money. She seemed to understand, but in times that she had a job, she started to complain that the chores are too much for her alone. I didn't want to feel like some kind of overbearing boss, so we renegotiated that if it's ever too much and she needs me to do something, all she has to do is either say it or leave a message and I will do it. This was working on and off, as sometimes Lex became very unhappy about having to tell me to do stuff. Well, fast forward another year and we have a bigger apartment. We have 2 more roommates who are guys who are also not part of the agreement. The rent per capita went down, meaning that Lex has much less trouble paying it and also mostly buys her own food now. So we renegotiated again and I compensate her financially for whatever chores that she does. But she still has financial problems and seems mostly unhappy with her life. But I feel like I'm doing what I can here. For the most part, she agrees that our arrangement is fine, but every now and then, she lashes out about how I'm lazy and horrible for not stepping up more with the chores. Also, as a side note, she does not berate the guys so much because according to her, they're just guys. You can't expect more from them. A mutual friend told me the agreement sucks, and Lex probably felt forced by circumstances to take it, and that's why she's unhappy. And honestly, that really hit me. And now I'm seriously feeling like the jerk right now because at this point, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think Lex is absolutely freeloading in this situation because she is completely lazy and just doesn't want to follow her agreement. Like, if she really didn't like it, then maybe it's time to speak up. It's like, come on, we're all adults here, just say something. So no, you're not the jerk by trying to uphold your agreements, because honestly, it sounds like Lex is just being lazy, because this really is not that hard to follow. Am I the jerk for going on holiday without my partner simply because she's demanding we go to a festival instead that I've expressly said that I don't want to go to? Because right now she's guilt-tripping me hard, claiming that I'm being unfair and unreasonable, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My girlfriend and I had been planning a holiday for next year. We live in the United Kingdom, and we'd chosen a European city we've always wanted to visit, aiming to go in March. We priced everything up, and we agreed that we would book it after Christmas. Then, last week, my girlfriend saw the lineup for a festival that she's wanted to go to for ages. It's in July, and tickets are over $250. She asked if I would like to go, but I told her festivals aren't really my thing, and the music isn't what I enjoy. She's been trying to get me to change my mind, but I said I'd rather not spend that much on something I won't enjoy, and suggested that she ask a friend to go instead. After that, she suddenly told me that she doesn't think she can afford the holiday anymore. I asked why, and she just repeated that she can't manage it, so we won't be going away. Then she brought up the festival again, and I pointed out that it seems like she's canceling the holiday out of spite because I'm not going to the festival with her. Well, she denied it, but started looking up the cost for the festival anyways. I then explained that the festival, travel, and everything else will add up to about the same as our holiday, so it's obvious that she is just choosing the festival over our plans. So I told her I'm still planning to go on the holiday and that she's welcome to come if she wants. When I said that, she got annoyed, saying it's unfair for me to still go and that I should be considering the festival instead. But I've reminded her that I've made it clear from the start that the festival isn't something that I'm interested in. I said that it feels unreasonable for her to cancel our holiday just because I'm not keen on the festival, and I'm not missing out on a trip just because she doesn't want to go. She said I'm being harsh and unfair for going ahead with our original plans on my own, but I reminded her again, she's totally welcome to come. Instead, she's choosing not to. So am I the jerk for going on holiday without my girlfriend? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, this is absolutely total manipulation, because you hit it right on the head. She's only canceling the holiday out of the country because you're not willing to go to that stupid festival. And it's like, wait a second, what are we doing? If she wants to go to the festival, then go for it. But why should you suddenly not be able to go on holiday all because she doesn't want to go as well? Like, you guys aren't joined at the hip, someone else could easily go with her. Like, in my opinion, it kind of sounds like your girlfriend is being a brat, and that is not fair for you at all. Like, you didn't do anything. So no, you're definitely not the jerk in this situation, because I think your girlfriend's being super annoying, and the fact that she's acting this way, in my opinion, is incredibly immature. My entitled friend demands that we go vegan for Thanksgiving, claiming that if we're eating at her house for Thanksgiving, then we're required to go 100% vegan, with no exceptions being allowed. So I decided to back out and accidentally start a movement amongst my friend group that resulted in everybody backing out of her stupid Thanksgiving dinner, which then caused my vegan friend to freak out on me and try to turn everybody against me. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a friend who went vegan about 10 years ago, and we've been friends for over 20 years now. We have a large group of friends of about 20 people, and there are a few of us that switch off cooking dinner on Thanksgiving for whoever's in town. Now, ever since my friend, who we will call Anne, went vegan, we've always accommodated her dietary restrictions with, at the very least, some kind of tofu turkey that she can eat, as well as one side dish and one dessert being strictly vegan. This year, Anne jumped in early and for the first time ever said that she wanted to cook Thanksgiving dinner this year, and that honestly wasn't a problem until she informed us in the group chat that the dinner will be 100% vegan. Some of us offered to bring some omnivore offerings, including a turkey, but she insisted that we eat vegan while at her house. She declared that vegan food tastes exactly the same as omnivore food, but guess what? It definitely doesn't. I've been to her house and choked down bean burgers and chocolate cake, and probably a dozen other meals, each of which she insisted tasted just like the real thing. She even tried to fool me once with a Beyond Burger, insisting that it was a real hamburger. I've only found a limited number of vegan dishes that I actually enjoy, and none of them have ever been made by her. So after thinking it over and discussing it with my husband, we decided to privately tell her that we were bowing out of dinner on Thanksgiving this year. I told her that I wanted turkey, mashed potatoes, and pumpkin pie that would all be made with traditional ingredients. And sure, I could have lied and said we had plans to travel to go see family, but I do not want to lie. And unfortunately, Anne has become more and more angry with me ever since I told her this about a week ago. Then she went and complained to some of the women in our group about me refusing to attend just because she's cooking, which is sort of true but still made me angry. So I ended up explaining to the other ladies that we all very considerately make vegan dishes just for her at every party, not to mention every single get-together any of us throw, and it's really unreasonable for her to insist that I strictly adhere to her dietary choices when I have never demanded the same from her. Well, as you can imagine, that blew up because all of the ladies have now jumped to my way of thinking and decided that they will have Thanksgiving at one of their houses instead. My husband says we probably should have lied about going out of town, or at the very least, I should have not explained my reasoning to the other ladies. And I've honestly decided to stay out of it from here on out, but somehow Anne blames me for the whole debacle. So truly, am I at fault for not wanting to go vegan for this Thanksgiving? Because right now I'm incredibly offended and I really don't know what to do. Okay, your friend is being completely unreasonable. For them seriously to be like, oh, if you want to eat Thanksgiving dinner, you have to go vegan. Like, that is so weird and so controlling. Because the original poster has it right. They literally accommodated this friend for so many years, and now the friend's like, oh no, I'm not gonna do that. If you want to eat at my house, it's gotta be this crappy vegan food. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and the fact that your friend is trying to act this way and like turn your friends against you, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic, because that kind of behavior was completely unnecessary. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit. it if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my sister's kids stay with me after she canceled on me last minute and made my life a living nightmare? Here's what happened. So my sister has 3 kids, and last month she asked if I could watch them for a weekend while she and her husband went on a short anniversary trip. Now, I agreed because I love my nieces and nephew, but I made it clear that I needed at least 2 weeks notice because I work long hours and I would have to rearrange my schedule. Fast forward to this past week, and I asked my boss for time off, cleared my weekend, and stocked my house with everything the kids would need. Friday afternoon rolls around and I'm waiting for her to drop them off. Then, suddenly, I get a text from her saying that they're not coming. She decided last minute that they were going to a family-friendly resort instead and didn't want me to watch them anymore. No apology, no nothing. Just them saying, oh, we'll have to do it another time. At this point, I was frustrated because I had completely cleared my weekend. I had turned down plans with friends and rearranged my work schedule for this. I responded by telling her that it was not cool to cancel on me last minute like that, especially when I went out of my way to help her out. Then 2 days later, she called me again asking if I could watch the kids the following weekend. Apparently, something came up with her original plan and she needed someone to watch them after all. But you know what? I told her no, I wasn't available. She then got upset and said I was being selfish and punishing her kids for something that wasn't their fault. Now she's mad at me, and my parents are saying I should be more understanding because things come up when you're a parent. Now, I don't have kids, but I feel like it's just basic respect to not cancel on someone last minute and then expect them to be available whenever you want. So am I the jerk here? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk because honestly, this is unacceptable. If I had cleared my schedule and went through the proper steps to have the time off to watch these kids, and then my sister was like, oh, sorry, we're not doing it anymore, and didn't let me know in advance that they were just gonna do something else, then I would never want to help them with anything else ever again. That is seriously such awful behavior, it's not even funny. And the fact that your parents are trying to be like, oh, they have kids are tough, things come up when you're a parent, and it's like, I'm sorry, that might be true, but your lack of planning is not my emergency. The original poster shouldn't have to drop everything they're doing just to help out their sister, who is too scatterbrained to schedule things properly. So no, you're not the jerk for not wanting to help her out, because her behavior is incredibly toxic, and you should not have to put up with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for leaving home after my partner let his son invite 5 friends over for a sleepover when I'm literally recovering from a major surgery? Because right now, my partner's saying that he just forgot and that I'm overreacting to what's really going on, because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I had major surgery last week. I am home recovering and off work for 2 weeks, with 4 to 6 weeks recommended before resuming life relatively normally. My partner informed me late yesterday afternoon that his 13-year-old son was having 5 friends for a sleepover tonight. It's now Saturday where I live, and I had no prior knowledge that he would allow his son to organize this, and it's for no special reason. It's literally happening just because they want to do it. Well, when I heard about this, I was instantly upset. I asked why he would agree to that, not only without speaking to me first, but also when I'm just home from the hospital and recovering from a major surgery. Well, his response was that he didn't think that it would affect me, and he just forgot to mention it. Well, at that point, I started crying, saying that I felt so uncared for and that he was being inconsiderate of my healing and recovery. He continued to reiterate that he didn't see how it should affect me and that it wasn't a big deal. He suggested that if it bothered me that much, I could go and stay at my mom's house for the night. Well, I didn't want to wait until the next day, so I packed a suitcase and drove myself to my mom's house right then and there, even though I'm not supposed to be driving yet. He has sent me messages saying I'm overreacting and that he still doesn't think that it's a big deal, but I don't understand how he thinks an additional 5 teenage boys in a house with 1 toilet and the living space right next to our bedroom where I'm supposed to be resting and recovering won't affect me in some kind of way. So am I in the wrong for leaving right away when in fact I don't think I should have left at all? I really think the sleepover should have been canceled for another time, but right now I really don't know what to do. Oh man, you're 100% right. This sleepover absolutely shouldn't have happened. It really sounds like this was a surgery that took you completely out of commission. So for your partner to be like, oh come on, you're just overreacting, it's not that big of a deal. No dude, are you kidding me right now? The original poster absolutely should take priority. This is not okay. It's just gonna be so annoying for them. So no, you're not the jerk for putting your foot down and being like, this is not okay. Because in my opinion, especially after a surgery of this kind, you definitely deserve way better than the way you're being treated. Am I the jerk for taking my birth certificate, my social security card, and my passport away from my mother, simply because I need it more than she does, despite the fact that she claims I don't have a legal right to them? Here's what happened. Okay, so when I moved out of my mom's house, I took my birth certificate certificate, my social security card, and my passport. The passport I've had to pay $200 for recently, and I asked her if she had my high school diploma and if I could have it so I could get back into school. She said that she would look, but she got really mad that I had my own birth certificate, social security card, and passport and said that they aren't mine legally. For reference, I'm 20 years old, so yes, they are. She then said that I can get a copy, but I can't have the originals, and that I need to give them back. But I told her no. She's more than welcome to get a copy, but as for the originals, they are mine. She doesn't need them unless she's trying to do some fraudulent stuff. I told her if she can get me a copy, that's fine, but I will not be paying for it. I heard it's a tricky process, and I don't want to do that because I have the originals right here. To sum it all up, I ended up telling her that I'm not giving this stuff back to her, especially the passport since I paid for it, because she has no necessity or legal right to it. So am I the jerk for taking my identifications away from my mom and saying that she can't have it because right now she's still incredibly mad and I don't know what to do? No, you're not in the wrong at all, and I think you have the right sense about this in essentially saying that this is yours and she doesn't need it. Like, you're 20 years old, there's no reason for her to have it in the first place anymore, and this is stuff that you're definitely going to need. And you're right, getting a copy of this stuff is a nightmare. It is so frustrating getting a copy of all of this because it could literally take well over a year just to figure this all out. So the fact that your mom's like, no, you can't have it, give it back to me, like, that just sounds super inconvenient and so unfair. So no, you're not the jerk for taking all of that away from her because she absolutely does not need that anymore. My phone number got leaked to a bunch of telemarketers, resulting in me getting all kinds of calls from all over the world. So I decided to maliciously comply by literally wasting their time in the best way possible. Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I know we all hate telemarketers, but these people who try to say, oh, I can buy your house, honestly push me to a new level of annoyed. They used to give out a fake company name and say Home Builders Incorporated or something like that. I ended up Googling it and got in contact with the actual owner of that company, who I believe is out in Minnesota. He told me that there's a company in Egypt of all places that sells off sales leads to American companies and essentially slips by the legality of combing through public records for personal information. He said to get to an American company, I need to pretend to be interested in selling my house and wait for the call from the US-based company and confront them. So that's exactly what I did. After giving some vague information that was incorrect to the Egyptian caller, I did eventually get matched up and called from someone in northern Ohio. When I explained I knew what he was doing and that it wasn't legal, he eventually hung up on me and blocked me. Now, I called from a few different numbers until he disconnected his line. So in some ways, that was a small win, but honestly, it's not the story that I came to tell. These calls have not stopped, so trolling is my new favorite thing. I constantly beat them to the punch, and I asked to buy their house. I asked them how Egypt is, or what the pyramids look like. I've even tried to order pizza and put them on hold, just to see how long they would last, or I would just change the subject completely. But my biggest win was when they would ask me if I have any other properties to sell. So I said, yes, I do in fact have some that I would like to sell. I then told them the address, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, District of Columbia. And this is a very famous address here in the States, but somehow my Egyptian caller wasn't familiar with it and took all of my information. Regrettably, I didn't have amazing information, but I did tell him it had a fenced-in yard, tons of extra bedrooms, and a big round office with top-notch security. Fast forward, and 2 days later, I get a call. The person on the other line started off by saying, I'm not sure who this is, but well played. I've been laughing for the last half hour. How did you convince them that you own the White House? So obviously, the first gentleman that called got the joke. He congratulated me and we had a laugh, and then he hung up. But an hour later, I got another call from someone who wasn't laughing. They said to me, I'm trying to figure out why I got a sales lead for the White House. So I basically said, well, that's because people in Egypt, where you buy your illegal sales leads, don't know anything about America. He then said to me, yeah, well, I don't think it's funny. But I said to him, well, that's tough because I think it's hilarious. Not only did you waste your money on your sales lead, but now I'm wasting your time as well. He then said some not so savory things to me, but you know what? I'm not even mad. So seriously, does anyone else have any famous addresses that I should try to sell? Because any opportunity that I have to ruin these guys' day and waste their time is time well spent, in my opinion. Oh man, that's a great way to get back at telemarketers, especially these scumbags who are like, oh yeah, I'll buy your property. It's like, first of all, how did you get my information? Because I know for a fact I didn't give it to any of these idiots trying to call me. So seriously, I love the way that you handle this because this really is the best revenge you could possibly have. Because these people have an awful career, and by annoying them and completely wasting their time, this prevents them from scamming anybody else in the future. Am I the jerk for calling out my parents at my dad's birthday party for the blatant favoritism they have towards my sister? sister, because right now I feel so left out of the family that at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my parents have my sister and me, and they have always liked my sister a lot more than me, and I'm honestly not sure why. I don't know if I'm not their real kid, or if they only wanted one child, and I just ruined everything, but they pay so much attention to my sister, they show her so much love, and they support her in everything, and I just get nothing from them. My support comes from a couple of extended family members and friends, as well as the friends' parents, but that's it. For example, my sister, ever since she was in elementary school, got to pick what summer camp she went to, and she never got told no for where she wanted to go. Meanwhile, I was never given a choice. Some years I went to the local free one during the day, and other years I went to no summer camp at all. When my sister turned 8 years old, she got a bedroom makeover and was given her own TV, a cool new bed, a desk space, and a new computer, and they put a mini fridge in it. Oh, and by the way, it was all in pink to match her favorite color. But I still don't have any of that stuff. The laptop I'm using now was a gift from a family member. When I turned 8 years old, I was given used dolls from the thrift store that were from the dollar store. Some were even broken with missing limbs or with hair that was halfway pulled out. My parents will buy my sister pizza or Taco Bell as a treat for being a good daughter and for being their special little girl. And it happens at least 3 times a month, where she literally gets it just because. But I never get the same treatment. I don't even get it for doing well on a test like she would, because they spoil her whenever she does good on a test, but I never get spoiled. They told my sister they have money saved for her future, but they have never told me that. I brought it up to my parents before, but they brushed me off, even when I cried to them, and my mom told me to stop being so childish. But it all came to a head when my parents had a party Saturday for Dad's birthday, and they started boasting about my sister and how great her grades were. And at that point, I kind of lost my temper, and I asked them about me. I pointed out that my grades were actually better than hers, but they never talk about me like that. I asked why they only talk about my sister, and why she is their favorite. I asked them why don't they care about me at all? My uncle on my dad's side then said out loud that I have a point, but things got really awkward after that, and my parents yelled at me for doing that. So am I the jerk for calling out my parents? Because right now, I'm incredibly frustrated. Oh man, yeah, your parents are definitely playing favorites with your sister. Like, they're literally acting as if you don't even exist, and all of your concerns are just childish. And that is crazy to me. Like, that is so toxic. Because seriously, the evidence is right in front of them. They don't pay attention to you at all. They're promising your sister all this money for her future, and they give her gifts and all this new stuff, while you're literally left in the dark and without any kind of affection from your parents. Like, that is so unfair, and I'm so sorry that you're dealing with that. So truly, you are not the jerk in this situation, and if anything, your parents are absolutely at fault here, because the way they're playing favorites towards your sister is absolutely unacceptable. Am I the jerk for supposedly hiding my child's savings account from my ex, and for not letting him contribute to it, simply because I don't want him to claim ownership over something he never participated in? Here's what happened. Okay, so my ex and I divorced 8 years ago. We have a 12-year-old son together, and we don't discuss finances other than child support, meaning that I don't care for any money that he may or may not give to our child directly. Years ago, I opened a savings account for my kid, and I religiously transfer a set amount of money plus the child benefit into it every single month. I also put some loose change in there whenever I can. My kid knows of this account and gets to decide if any monetary gifts from family and friends are to be spent immediately or added to his growing savings. He doesn't keep tabs on the account, but has a rough idea of how much he gets every month, as well as how much he's already got. Now, my son must have told my ex about the account, because my ex approached me about it. He actually asked me to see the account, but I refused. He then said that he wanted to at least know the exact amount or some kind of rough idea, but I said no again. He then tried to say that he wanted to contribute and become a co-owner of the account, and he's basically implying that he wants the account to be from mom and dad. I asked if he'd like to make a big initial payment, but guess what? He doesn't, as he doesn't have that kind of money just to throw into an account that nobody can access for years, according to him. He just wants to join in now and throw in some cash here and there, but that the amount that's already in there is to be overlooked. But again, I completely refused. He then told me that I can only afford that thanks to his child support contributions, but I told him that the child support is his duty and it is spent on our son's current needs, and not for him to hold it over my head. He then called me a jerk for not telling him about the account when I first opened it, because now he's apparently 8 years behind, and he won't be able to match it, and it will look bad when my kid grows up and only gets my support. Well, I told him that it's up to him whether or not he invests in our child's future, and he still has a long time to save something if he wishes to do so. He then told me I was a jerk for purposefully making him look like a bad dad, all for not having the thought of something like this. But you know what? I don't think it's fair of him to ask to jump in and claim to have contributed to the savings I've worked hard on for years. But now I wonder if I actually acted like a jerk for creating a situation in which I look like the better or more caring parent. So seriously, should I have told him about it when I first opened the account? Should I just let him contribute to keep the peace? The money is going to end up in my son's account anyways, whether he receives payments from 2 savings accounts or just one. What should I do? Okay, for starters, you're not the jerk because you're not appearing to be the only caring parent. In my opinion, you're the only one who's the caring parent. This guy only wants to latch on to your account that you have for your son because he just wants to claim credit for the account when your son finally comes of age. That's really what this is all about. Like, he doesn't care about putting money in there. He just wants to look like a good parent. And you better believe that if his name is on that account for someone who deposited money into it, he will scream it from the rooftops that this was somehow his idea and he helped just as much as you did in putting that money in there. And that is not fair in the slightest, and I don't think you owe him that privilege at all. So if he really wants to give some kind of money to his kid, then he can make a bank account on his own and put money in there for his kid just like you're doing. And under no circumstances, in my opinion, should you feel obligated to help him look like a good parent in the slightest. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.